ready to get going. Or just turn the, I would advise you just turn the cameras off, mute.
St. Vincent land so beautiful, with joyful hearts we pledge to thee our loyalty and love and vow to keep you ever free. Whatever future brings, our faith will see us through. May peace reign from shore to shore, and God bless and keep us true. Room now fair and blessed Isle, your mountains high, so clear and green, a home to sure. And God bless and keep us true.
Ashley, you're muted.
Yes. Let me say a very pleasant good evening to all of the world, to St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Good night, good night, good night. We are here live on this live stream tonight, the beginning of Global Entrepreneurship Week 2022. And we are here to celebrate with the world the development of entrepreneurship. But particularly tonight, our focus is on St. Vincent and the Grenadines. With me tonight, we have some very special guests, and this is our 2022 Virtual Business Roundtable. We have with us the distinct pleasure of having Dr. Marcia Brandon with us. We have Laverne King. We have Ambassador, I must say, Shabaza George. We have Miss Risha Allen, and we also have Miss Relisa Samuel. We are going to be having a very, very exciting discussion tonight. But before we get into this discussion, we want to hear a few words from our president of the Global Entrepreneurship Network, Mr. Jonathan Layton. Okay, we have a slight technical problem there. Let me just pause for 1 minute to get it corrected. Just 1 minute, please. Very sorry about that. We're having a little glitch. Okay, there we go.
Welcome to Global Entrepreneurship Week 2022, where through national campaigns, 200 nations are united behind a global mission to encourage more of their citizens to consider the path of entrepreneurship. I'd like to thank all of our hosts, our global partners, and our local organizers around the world who will try to inspire more than 10 million people to transform their world. The world needs more entrepreneurs. We need more of our citizens rethinking, ideating, of course, creating jobs and generating new value for their economies, their communities, and themselves. When we conceived of Global Entrepreneurship Week 15 years ago with the Ewing Marion Kauffman Foundation, we had a simple goal. We wanted to show all citizens and nations that Silicon Valley had no monopoly on entrepreneurship. We set out to inspire and give confidence to all citizens, but especially those from historically underrepresented groups, that they too could be a dreamer. They could be a doer, a risk taker. This time has never been more important for each of us to call on more of our nation's entrepreneurial potential. Entrepreneurs are more than optimists. They're natural leaders, made for uncertain times and big problems like the ones we have today. Many of us are anxious about our health, about inflation, how to pay our bills, the polarization of a world, and of course the sustainability of our planet due to climate change. But put simply, many of us are uncomfortable or even scared of this less certain and less predictable world. The good news is that entrepreneurs thrive on both problems and this uncertainty. They see possibilities, and as change accelerates, they see an infinite number of new potential solutions to test. They inspire us all to be curious, to be resilient, and confident in humanity and our ability to solve problems. The data shows in the post-pandemic world, millions of new actions are already happening and very fast across national boundaries that are, of course, porous to innovation and ideas. And while the rules and norms have changed, the early adapters, the entrepreneurs, they're already on it. So we can have that confidence. But we need more of them. So this week, organized under 4 pillars, one of entrepreneurship education, ecosystems, policy and inclusion, enablers of all kinds are trying to inspire more of us to become that next generation of dreamers and builders. GW will offer inspiring talks, forums, networking events, hackathons, and award ceremonies. It also offers dozens of pitch competitions, anchored by our Entrepreneurship World Cup, where we'll have national competitions and applications from nearly 200 countries. There will be events everywhere in the world, from Alaska to Auckland, hosted by, of course, thousands of partners and leaders who are all set on listening, learning, and hopefully inspiring more of us, more of you, to take action. And while philanthropic leaders like the Ewing Marion Kauffman Foundation in the United States are at its heart, during GEW you will hear from corporations like FedEx, heads of state like South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa, who is joining me shortly at our 22 on Sloan campus for a hackathon and award ceremony in Johannesburg. And there will be thousands of entrepreneurial support organizations, investors, community leaders, and of course, entrepreneurs themselves. We'll also have lots of news and announcements. We just announced the opening of our latest Gen campus in Turkey. There'll also be announcements, for example, in the United States about new programs. We're going to be launching an equitable access to credit program. And we'll also have lots of news about upcoming events, including a summit in Kansas City. But generally speaking, while we'll have towns like Kansas City, we'll have hundreds of live events. There will also be lots of virtual activities. I, for one, will be hosting several leaders on my podcast throughout the week, including not just stories from the early days of GW, but stories from ministers, entrepreneurs, and in fact, at least one of our global partners that's been with us since day one of Global Entrepreneurship Week, who I'm very proud to say was just nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize. And of course, for all of you who wish to get together live and in person, we'll also be opening registration for the next Global Entrepreneurship Congress set to happen in Melbourne, Australia on May 1 through 4. It will be, you can go to gec.co if you want to sign up, and that'll be an opportunity for you to think about how do I connect in person with more of the people that have been celebrating this week. But we're all around a common value proposition. How do we inspire more people to be bigger than the sum of their parts? How do we inspire more historically underrepresented entrepreneurial ecosystems and communities to join this exciting world where we reboot, rethink, regenerate to transform our world? We aspire to light the candles in more of the hearts and minds of young people and people who previously felt left out of our ecosystems. And we hope to level the playing field, making it possible for anyone, anywhere to start or scale a firm. My thanks to all of our team at Gen Global who've worked around the clock on this. I also want to thank again all our national host organizations in each country and the thousands of volunteer organizers who across the world have donated their time and talent to engage in their communities. Thank you, and have a great Global Entrepreneurship Week.
Thanks so much to Mr. Jonathan for that introduction to GEW 2022. And we are going to get into the meat of the matter tonight. But before we do that, we want to just say good evening to all of our guests who's joining us. Good evening, Marcy Bino. I know that you're an entrepreneur yourself. Calvin Coolkid, Harry, good evening to you. Please feel free to, send your questions, any comments you want to make through our Facebook Live. We will be able to see you. Should be able to put your concerns or your questions or your comments to our guest this evening. St. Vincent and the Grenadines is a Caribbean island and a small island developing state with a population of approximately 110,600 people. it was said that about 54% of our population was under the age of 30. St. Vincent's economy was mainly stimulated by agriculture and tourism. It had a vibrant banana, coconut, dashing, producing industry. However, this has taken a major decline in the last 15 years due to diversification towards the tourism sector. Diseases which plague the banana industry, the loss of the treatment, that treatment we had through the World Trade Association, and also the opening up of the global market, which came with the removal of, as I was saying earlier, that preferential treatment for local and regional trade. It has affected us tremendously, but in particularly, we see that there are rising numbers of unemployment, especially among our youth. This evening, to get things going for us, we have with us no stranger to St. Vincent and the Grenadines, a very knowledgeable young man. We have, I see that he's now Ambassador Shabaza George. I'm going to allow him to introduce himself and come on and join us this evening as he makes his contribution to this roundtable discussion. Welcome to you, Mr. Shabaza George.
I hope this is working on a first attempt.
Yes, you're up, sir. Good evening.
Lovely. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much, Dr. John, for having me. Good evening to Dr. Brandon as well, Laverne, Miss Samuel, Miss Allen. Thank you guys so much for joining me. Thank you for having me to speak on this topic. It's been a while since I've done anything of this sort. My ambassadorship, thank you, Dr. John, is quite new. And it's an amazing adventure for me. It's through my optimist work in Africa, I've been granted the status of ambassador. And I do hope my work in that region of the world will soon come to light. And people could see the amazing things we're doing in Africa, and we could do them as well in the Caribbean. But more importantly, this evening, you asked me to touch base on the impact of youth entrepreneurship across St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And it's a topic that hits home to me. It's a topic that comes home to me. It's something I've been experiencing and going through for quite some time, the challenges. It's pretty much a life story for me. Starting off in business quite young, in a very shaky environment, very uncertain soil for businesses like such as St. Vincent and the Grenadines. But I believe I am coping, and I think my wounds and my stripes would have earned me enough insight and enough experience to share this evening on what we want, the challenges we face, and what we should do going forward. So I start off by saying that St. Vincent and the Grenadines is just a small country with under 120,000 citizens. However, the market is quite small for entrepreneurs. Navigating these small islands and seeking out their needs and where to meet them is often a task due to the rich diversity you could find on each island. It is very easy to find markets, but loyalty is something that our people hold dear. As my late grandmother will particularly get items of groceries, like her milk and her flour, from one particular supermarket, and she will not go to another supermarket, no matter how you try to convince her that she could get these items elsewhere. The Vincentian people believe in loyalty. They're very loyal to the things that they stand by, the things that they believe in, especially the entities that they would have seen stand the test for times and persevere. They're very loyal to those entities. It's very, very sad to see PH Vera go, because that would have been a staple to our Vincentian economy, to our Vincentian public for quite some time. And I know they will certainly be missed. So loyalty isn't something that leaves much room for you to bite off a piece of clientele and hold that for yourself if you're a new and upcoming business. And the information you need after biting off a piece of clientele for yourself in order to hold that clientele, ever so often that knowledge and that information isn't available, because the people who have been able to bite off the clientele and hold on to it, they're not really available for one-on-one mentoring sessions and exchanging of ideas as to how to navigate business in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, because they're busy running their businesses themselves. So we have a separation between new entrepreneurs not having access to more experienced entrepreneurs, their struggles and their stories. So there is a rift where you're just coming in all willy-nilly and all blank, hoping to put this idea forward, hoping to put this business out there and have the public run with it. And ever so often that could prove so tedious. And you really have to give hats off to the people who start businesses on their own and push until they find a way to stand on the Vincentian market. Entrepreneurship isn't taught in school, and that is a very serious setback when it comes to the implementation of youth businesses across the country. You meet a lot of people with brilliant ideas, and they will go through schools where we learn business subjects, we learn principles of accounts, we learn principles of business, we learn office administration and the other basic components that makes up a business. But in order to run a business, I mean, a lot of people leave school not knowing how to draft a business plan or even what a business plan look like. And these are the things we need to start teaching in schools, especially as a small developing nation, in order for us to get forward. The government simply cannot provide jobs for us all. And I think for too long that narrative has gone on where people have gone abroad to study and came back home expecting to find a job. And if they don't find a job, they cower themselves into a corner doing some bookkeeping job that they've not even studied. Wasted studies, a lot of wasted degrees floating around on our island with skilled people who we could actually tap into. We just don't know where they are, and we just don't know where they exist. So our school needs to start placing more emphasis on teaching entrepreneurship. If not as a component in our school's curriculum, we need to incorporate it into an extracurricular activity. And there are social clubs and organizations on island who's available and willing to assist in this regard. Just like every other country, I'm certain that our people has it in them to produce great. Great here means that our people have greatness inside them. Maybe the next cure for cancer, maybe the next business structure that will help in the cost of living crisis, or even an idea that will create thousands of jobs. Unless you know somebody who knows somebody, or your parents or relatives have a piece of land or a house that could stand security for you to get a loan, to get capital to start a business, you're ever so often stuck between a rock and a hard place. So ever so often you meet people with brilliant idea and you'll inquire, what's holding you back? I mean, what's keeping you from pushing this idea forward? What's keeping you back from going forward with this business? And ever so often, capital will always be the thing that comes up. People, I don't have the money to start it. I've probably gone to the bank and went over to a loan manager, and I've not found anybody who believes in me and believe in the prosperity and believe in this project that it can work. And I've not got anything to put down as collateral. So a lot of brilliant ideas are swept under the rug simply because capital isn't accessible for young entrepreneurs on our shores. And that is something we need to change. Another thing is entrepreneurs ever so often need to outsource their materials. They need to import stuff, be it from Amazon, be it from Alibaba, and custom duties. Our custom duties are beyond comprehensible. They are some of the highest in the region, and it is very difficult for young people, especially those who are just starting out and making their way. It's very difficult for them to create sustainable business, to start striving in business when they have to pay such outlandish and great customs duties on things that you probably find overseas cheap. Then they get to St. Vincent and you're slammed with a customs bill that is extremely ridiculous, and you're trying now to figure out how you're going to sell and how you're going to package your produce in order to still make a profit to keep your business going, as well as paying Peter what is owed onto Peter through the forms of taxes and dues to the state. I believe there needs to be a medium set up where entrepreneurs, especially those who've just started, must be able, they should be allowed some graces. They should be given at least one concession a year to import things that are needed for the operation of their business. and restrictions should not be too gripping. If we are indeed going to prosper as a country, we need more entrepreneurs. We need more locals to invest in the creation of growth of new businesses on our island. As a people, we need to start putting our money where our mouth is and support our own. As Ashley ever so often put constructive solutions more to each one, push up one, that is very important. And we need to rally behind that theme because that's the only way we can actually make it. Coming on to the end, fourthly, there is an urgent need for a skilled specialist directory. Ever too often am I doing projects and I have to stop everything I'm doing and spend days trying to find, be it a web developer, be it a website designer, be it a plumber, finding skilled people in St. Vincent and the Grenadines who have the skills in the different things that we need to support our businesses could be such a challenge. We need to find a way to make that easier, probably through the implementation of a skilled demand directory or an entrepreneur directory. There needs to be a space, there needs to be an online market space or online freelance space where our people can go and find our local talent and utilize a lot of the services and a lot of the resources and buy a lot of the things that we need from our businesses from locals, helping to keep a little bit more money on our island as opposed to constantly importing the things we need. I am certain that a lot of things that we need for our day-to-day operations could be found on St. Vincent. And if it can't be found in St. Vincent, then we should look down the islands. That it's only then, if we can't find it anywhere throughout St. Vincent or even the Grenadines, because ever so often there's little trade of services and goods between the Grenadines and mainland. And then I think we have enough that we could sell between ourselves and be a bit more sustainable and come up with new ideas on how to use what we have as a people. I mean, the scrap materials we have, be it the resources we have, be it the foods we have, we need to find a way to start incorporating us into what we sell and sell more of us in order for our country to be more sustainable and we could see more development and a lot more greater state. Lastly, self-doubt is something that poses as a challenge to so many young people in business when you have conversations with them. Self-doubt in starting, you're ever so often met with why are you starting a business now? Why are you starting a business in this climate? And the negativity comes from left, right, and center. And ever so often, it's very hard to see your way up in a country such as St. Vincent that, growth isn't something that is constant and rampant as it should be. So it's up to you to believe in yourself and believe in your overall potential and step out, not looking at where you are, not looking at who's around you, but understanding what you want to accomplish and understanding that in order for us to get somewhere, you have to start. Starting is one part of it. The next part is finding us. We're all here. We share similar struggles. We exist within the same business eco space where we're all trying to trade goods and services from a country. So we understand, and for us to still be here, for most of us to still be here, there has to be some level of resilience and some level of understanding of the system that causes us to persevere. So we need a greater sense of community, for lack of a better term, a business community. There needs to be a young business community where the exchange of ideas and the exchange of different tricks of the trade, for lack of a better term, different loopholes, different advances that we could make, different things that work in our favor that we could tap into. There needs to be a space where we can exchange all of that. I mean, you owe it to yourself to leave behind no unfinished task. And if your business is your passion, there is absolutely nothing that stands between you getting your goals, getting to the end of your goals, and setting up prosperity for you and your business. Because at the end of the day, we all have to break the cycle of what it is now. We have to break the cycle where people start businesses and ever so often just drop out because they have no way forward. We need more support. We need a sense of community, and I will say government and state need to meet us halfway. That is my 2 cents on the challenges I could bring up so far, Doc and panel.
Thank you so much, Mr. George. I just want to invite now the panel in to let's discuss this. If we invite them to just turn the cameras on mute, and let us, talk around these issues. Your topic, a very interesting one indeed, talking about the impact of entrepreneurship and youth. You mentioned some very critical points. One, entrepreneurship not being taught in schools. You need to have a skills directory. You talked about this whole thing of this Godfather thing, that we have in the Caribbean, that in order to get anything done, it always seems that you have to have a Godfather, but we need to change that culture, right? Because all of us don't have the same godfathers. And therefore, especially for young people, it might be a bit more difficult. You mentioned also the high custom duties. And I love the part where you mentioned that there should be a concession for at least a year, for young people in business. And, the issue of self-confidence, that emotional intelligence that is needed in entrepreneurship. And I can see that the panelists are ready to get into this one. I know we have a mixture of youth and we have an educator with us, Enrisha Aline, and we have Dr. Brandon, who has been working with young people in entrepreneurship across the Caribbean for many, many, many years. And, I think that this ought to be a very interesting one to talk about, the impact of youth and entrepreneurship in St. Vincent. So over to you, the panel. What are your thoughts?
I think that Shaba's adequately represented a large cross-section, views of a large cross-section of young entrepreneurs in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Myself, a young business owner, one of my questions that I always ask is the same point of concessions. I think that one of the things that we ought to always keep in mind, or the government, the administration, policy developers should keep in mind, is that young entrepreneurs today essentially become bigger employers tomorrow. And even if you're only employing 2 people today, 3 people today, that's 2 to 3 or 4 households that you're making an impact on. And the social development of that and the returns on that is immeasurable. And I think that it is often difficult to start a business out of pocket, because if you're between the ages of 17 to 27, 28, 30 years old, and you're starting a business, you don't really have a lot of capital to invest. We don't really have a central bank. We don't have a development bank in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And so it's difficult for you to get a loan. It therefore means that as a young entrepreneur, if you're starting a business, you most likely have to do it from your pocket. And this is where the state and the environment in the country should be made to make you successful. And one of the means by which you can do that is by ensuring, listen, if you're a young entrepreneur between this age to that age, for the first year of your startup, we're going to afford you certain concessions. It doesn't have to be 100% concession, but it can be some sort of a concession that encourages you that, listen, I didn't get $100 off, but I got $40 off, and that is good enough. I could buy an additional piece of equipment to improve my efficiency. So yeah, that's my take on his presentation.
Thank you so much, Laverne King. You know what is frightening for me, and this has been the case from the time I came back home, was that we have a population, and I think that so many people forget this, that at least 54% of our population, which is just around 110,600, is under the age of 30. And I don't think this is more than half of the population of St. Vincent. And it is critical that we pay attention to the development of our young people, particularly. And I really, I can't help but emphasize that enough. But I over now to, another panelist who would contribute.
Yes, if I can make my contribution. Yeah. Certainly thanks, Shabazz, for your input. And I could certainly hear the frustration in your voice, and I fully understand what you have experienced or what you have mentioned to others. And the whole idea of having entrepreneurship taught in schools is very important, so that there's that entrepreneurial mindset from young. And certainly in my upcoming presentation, I do mention that as something we need to look forward to. What I would suggest for persons who are looking to develop a business in a small island developing state as St. Vincent and the Grenadines is not only limit yourself to our shores. It's very important to look at opportunities within the region or, a nearby island, to serve as your market, because you may find that you may not be able to probably provide, get a profit, be able to, we're just only looking at St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And I think usually when persons are, from the islands, we start to only just limit ourselves to our particular country. In addition to the youths being trained, I think also to the older ones, the adults, also need to change their mindset, because, we've been cultured in a way where, get a stable job. What are you talking about and thinking about developing your business? So I think also to the parents need to, have that sort of aid in seeing, there's nothing wrong with your child becoming an entrepreneur. Yes, it may be a risk, but, in this particular climate, look at the situation with the pandemic. Unfortunately, many persons became unemployed and they had to pivot. Those who could sew were, manufacturing masks. So you really need to think outside the box and, look at opportunities beyond the shores. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Ms. Risha. Aline, excellent points there you made, and especially in mentioning about looking outward. I always believe that we can produce in St. Vincent, but produce products that are innovative and that can go to other shores. But I wouldn't want to go too deep into that, because I am sure that other panelists would mention some of that. So let me just allow another panelist now to give their comments on the presentation on youth.
All right, so I did make note of a point that Shabazz made, which has been a sore point for me. And it has to do with our views regarding education, in that the schools just churn out employees, right? As he correctly said, we don't teach entrepreneurship. The only time I was exposed to an entrepreneurship course was in community college, and this was an after school session that I attended, right? And I do have a serious issue with the way in which our education system is set up, in that I get the feeling, and I don't think it's just a feeling, but we're so much more concerned with quantity of subject attainment as opposed to quality of subjects, and in terms of how these students are going to use these subjects in the long term. I am of the firm belief that every student leaving should, at least, apart from the academics, should also be exposed to some sort of technical skill, because both of them need to go hand in hand. And when I look at my own situation, I do have the formal academics, but I always had a love or a passion for sewing. And because I've had this love and this passion, mind you, I did not do it at Form 5 level, but being exposed to it in lower secondary school still helps me to be where I am today. So I think that the education system, it needs a little bit of tweaking, because I think that too many persons are, as Shabazz said, we have a lot of wasted degrees. I am not sure if many of these persons who come back with their degrees are actually using the degree that they went to study, right? And this is one of the other issues where you just have a workforce of unhappy persons. So what's the point of getting the degree? You're hoping that you're going to be able to earn enough money to pay back to this degree and hopefully accomplish other goals. But what is the quality of your life? So it's a little bit more than just academic subjects that you're getting, but in terms of what am I going to do with these subjects? How are they going to contribute? Do I wish to be an employee for the rest of my life? You know, so it's all of these things that we have to think about and consider.
Very good point. You made a point there that has been also burning for me, especially when it comes to these degrees and so on, and the use of them. And I am one that believes that, you know, when you look at the stats, something that I came to notice of recent across the Caribbean, you know, there was a period of time, I think within the last 5 years, where in most of the universities, the valedictorian was a Vincentian. I don't know if a lot of people recognize that, right? Across the universities in the Caribbean. And here you have a country that is, if you look at the performance of the country across the OECS, it is one of the lowest. But yet we have people who boast every day that they have this degree. I mean, I love to see people celebrate their degree and the scrolls. I love to see them come across the stage with the college graduation, 750 at least every year, plus the other things that we do here in terms of education. But why is it then that knowledge is not also being incorporated into the development of entrepreneurship? Or let me even say it, into the knowledge of earning revenue, which would give people that better quality of life, rather than settling just for, I want to just get a job with my degree. And you made an interesting point that because we lack opportunities in St. Vincent, a lot of the degrees that the people have, they don't have the job to suit that degree, right? And it is very difficult for them. I know a young man that I mentor, and he just graduated with aviation. I can tell you the torment this guy has been having to fit into the scope of St. Vincent with his knowledge. And in my opinion, he is an expert in his field. I mean, studying aviation is nothing that is slight. And we have a new international airport, but I can, you know, the torment he's been through, and it was very stressful for him, even to complete an internship, right? And I know he's listening now. I see him there. I won't call his name, but I know he's listening. And I can speak on his behalf tonight and say that, you know, I agree with you. It should not be like that, right? And I would just like to suggest that these persons who are academically inclined should really align themselves with a lot of the entrepreneurs across St. Vincent and take that knowledge and help them to scale up and to innovate their products. And I will stop there because I don't want to dive into, you know, what the other presenters would say, but that is something that has been very dear to my heart. And I have always wished to see it, and I always encourage it. You know, use your degree, use the knowledge that you have, and enhance what we already have. And if I could quickly give an example, there's old-fashioned products. There's a teacher, you know, a very good colleague of ours, and she was teaching, and she left her teaching to do her old-fashioned products. This is the tamarind balls, and she has become so innovative, right, with the products that she is producing. And you know, the painful thing for me about her business, it is not the products. It is the amount of insults that she received, as Shabazz said about us, that breaking your confidence and like, are you mad? Why would you leave teaching to go and do work on a sugar cake and work on a, you know, a fudge? But she didn't just went to do the ordinary stuff. She has many flavors, very innovative and so on. And people are missing that part of it, right? And I know that is kind of warming you up, Miss Samuel, for what you're going to present next, you know, but let me allow, I think I call her the guru of entrepreneurship across the Caribbean. If there's one person that I know that have worked with young people in developing entrepreneurship, I can tell you it is Dr. Marcia Brandon. I have seen with my own eyes for many years, as her favorite phrase is pounding the pavement. She pounded it until I got it in my head, you know, and I really need to allow you to speak on this topic, ma'am, to enlighten these, you know, other entrepreneurs in St. Vincent about youth entrepreneurship. So welcome, Dr. Brandon.
Thank you, Dr. John. Good evening to all our other esteemed colleagues on the roundtable, on the virtual roundtable. Never thought I'd see this day. We're sitting in different countries all over the world and meeting together. Isn't innovation fantastic? But we do know that technology is awesome and awful at the same time, right? Like everything else, it's balanced. So happy Global Entrepreneurship Week to everyone, all of you, all of our virtual listeners, everybody here. It's 15 years and I'm really happy to have been affiliated with and partnered with Jen and GW for the past 15 years. This topic this evening is so important to sustainable development, but also to people's sustainable livelihoods and to people's progress. I don't think I have anything round shaking to add to what you have all said, because what you have all said is pretty much true, very relevant, and we see where there are gaps, we see where there are opportunities, and we see where there could possibly be solutions as we go forward. I don't like to say challenges and problems anymore. I think we're so steeped in all of that that somehow when the opportunities present themselves, we can no longer see them because all we see are problems and challenges. But I like to say that despite the challenges and the problems, even with the pandemic, so many opportunities opened up. Look at this Zoom. But I mean, in our communities, if we look, there's so many opportunities. So where do we really, and Dr. John, I forgot I was going to say this. Please stop dating me with all this years of whatever. My God, I'm really trying not to date myself here. I'm joking. You can date me all you want. But yeah, when we look at all of these and we look at education, if we tie this in, because the same challenges we're having in the region are the same challenges everybody else is having, is just that we have smaller scale, we have smaller countries, we have smaller resources. We do not have the systems in place to help our entrepreneurs the way we should. So we're touting entrepreneurship, but somehow we haven't put the systems in place. Yeah, and unfortunately, that happens. But you know what gives me hope is that 20 years ago when I started doing this, or 20 odd years ago when I started doing this, we were not at this stage. And so for me, this gives me tremendous hope. I see young people here, I see a mixture of people and all entrepreneurial mindsets. That's another thing that we have to get to. The mindsets of our people. If we're doing degrees, it shouldn't be to come out and get a job. The mindsets of our people must be altered. So usually when I'm interviewing anyone who has told me, oh, I've just gotten a master's, a PhD, a first degree, a Google certification, whatever, the first thing I ask is, what can you do now that you could not do before? Because I really want to know. I want to know, did you just get this thing to hold up a paper? Which we know some of us need to get it to hold up a paper because unfortunately we can't get through the door without it. People's mindsets are so steep in paper. They're not really steep in know-how. How are you going to get this done? Can you get this done? And so I don't like to reiterate or to even focus on the negatives, but one of the things they keep saying about our region is that we are implementation deficit. We are lacking in implementation because we have a set. This is what they say. I do not agree, but this is the story that keeps being told, and I want to cut that out because it is not true. The story that is told is that we do not implement well. I do not believe that. The story that is told is that we have a set of educated people who talk a lot. Yes, we speak, but we need to speak so that we can solidify our ideas and get implementation going. So I'm not going to even bother with that story. We need to start telling our own stories and different stories, new stories, real stories. If we don't tell our stories and we allow people to tell our stories for us, what is going to happen? What happens? So at this stage, I'm going to encourage all of us to remember that education is not just about earning, and I'm sure all of you know, and everybody, all our listeners who are on the program listening virtually, they know this too. Education is not about earning that piece of paper alone. It is about using the new knowledge that we have, looking at how we can actually utilize it to do something useful, something new, create a product, work in somebody else's business like it is our own, and that's another thing. So I know I can go on forever, but I want to reiterate the 4 themes that Jen has for Global Entrepreneurship Week. And it's a recurring theme. It's a similar theme to what COESL has taken on over the years, and we have not changed that theme. Our theme is complementary capitalism, and I'll explain some more, but it's about utilizing entrepreneurship as a way to create sustainable livelihoods for everyone, leaving no one behind. And it's not just about people going off to make their own businesses. Entrepreneurship is about this mindset of creativity, of being able to get things done. It's about understanding that we can solve our own problems, but also, and I go back that word I don't like, solve our own situations, make new solutions, and also work together to get it done. So Jen's Global Entrepreneurship Week theme: education, inclusion, ecosystem, and policy. And if you think about it, we're actually touching on all those 4 themes right now. Yeah. Talked about policy. What are our policymakers doing to make the environment, to make it easier for us to open a business? What has been done? What has been done for youth, women, men to get the resources that they need to run a business in St. Vincent and the Grenadines? And I could say in the Caribbean, because when I speak, I perhaps will just say in the Caribbean because I'm so used to saying in the Caribbean. But what is being done for that to happen from the policy level? What has been done at the education level? And policy comes back into almost everything. So of course, from the education level, are our teachers equipped to actually teach entrepreneurship? Why can't we, Dr. John spoke about that, and complementary capitalism for us is, why can't we draw on our ecosystem and bring the business people in to teach? You've started a business, teach how you start a business, yeah? Transfer that knowledge, do the practical thing. And then we look at the ecosystems. Why is it that we're in silos so much? I like to connect people. And I think I've done a great job of it, just putting people in touch with each other. Because for me, the more people you know, and I'm a firm believer that your network is truly your net worth. Because I don't have money, but I'm telling you, if you need somebody tomorrow, I can tell you who to get. That is for sure. So my network is my net worth. I know people, but I didn't just know them overnight. That didn't happen overnight. It took a while. You know, I spoke to people, I got in touch with people. I said, how can I help you? How may I help you? What can I do to help you? Reciprocity, give and take. And so ecosystem, inclusion. It is so important that we include. We're leaving so many people behind in our tiny states, but we still expect to be competitive. If you leave 50% of the people behind, how the hell can 50% of the people actually carry along our entire nation? Come on now, people, we need to get real. So let me stop there. And thank you for listening, everyone.
So much, Dr. Brandon. I know that this is your pet peeve, so I know this is something we can talk for hours and days and years and continuously to get it fixed. And that is what I have enjoyed about working with you, your passion, not just for talking, but as you said, for implementing, getting things done, connecting people. And I hope that my panelists realize that the reason we are here tonight is because basically of that exact strategy that Dr. Brandon mentioned, right? She was the one who brought this to the Caribbean GW, and look at it today, right? Look at it today that we are part of that now, right? And this is not just being shown in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, this is global. I want to say a good evening to Miss Carlene Gordon, one of the COESL's directors, and a woman that she's come to St. Vincent on a project we had before. And, you know, she was really working. She was very interested in what the young people were looking to do here. And she helped, you know, in terms of what they were doing. Good evening to some of the other viewers we have. I see Tavio Simmons, Mark Olivier, Tanya Rahim, Akisha Johnson, and Basil Charles. If I don't see all of your names, forgive me, as the technology. Sadly, that when we finish these lives, it's only when we realize that we had so many comments that passed us that we would not be able to see during the live. So before I introduce our next panelist, I just want to share with you a very quick intro video. And I hope that you would see why we started off with Mr. George and where we're going here next, you know. And as we keep going, I'm just gonna share now a very quick video and as we introduce our next panelist. Another glitch again, just bear with me, I'm gonna get it right. We have a little problem here again, just. I'm so sorry, but we're having a little glitch. Just bear with me 1 second. Seems that every time we go to show these clips, we're having a problem with the Zoom. It's not allowing any volume. Just let me try this. Let me just try that again. It is playing, but I'm not. I don't know why it's not allowing the volume. I'm so sorry, but it's not allowing the volume to play. I don't know why that is happening. Oh boy. All right, okay, I think I have it right now. Let me see. So sorry about that. Very sorry. Stop.
Okay, Ashley, you went back on mute, and Ashley, you're back on mute. Ashley,
Sorry, I
you're
don't know.
okay.
I'm so sorry.
It's not a problem. It's not. Because of this sound, I recognize it was supposed to be my video, but it's fine. It's fine.
Oh, I'm so sorry. We don't know what happened there. I tried it before, but it didn't play. So sorry. So without any further ado, to speak on the topic, taking the plunge. This is a big one. Taking the plunge. May I introduce to you Ms. Rolisa Samuel.
All right, so good night to everyone. Again, Ashley, thank you for having me on the panel, and I am pleased to be a part of this presentation this evening. All right, so as Ashley said, I am Rolisa Samuel. I am the owner of Romax, and Romax itself comprises of two parts. It comprises of vehicle accessories, which include customized seat belts, steering wheel, and headrest covers. And then there's another section of the business, which is Romax Customizations, which takes care of, well, it's all embroidery-based, an embroidery-based service. So Romax Customizations takes care of things like baby items, which is pillows, blankets, onesies. There are also throw pillows. You can have customized towels, tote bags, patches, Velcro patches, regular patches, t-shirts as well. So I think this might be a good opportunity for those who may not know of the business, despite the video not showing that you can find the business on all social media pages, well, on the two social media pages of Facebook and Instagram, right? If you care to learn more about the business. So that business is into its 7th year. And about 3 weeks ago, I started another business, which is called Vinci Puzzles. So it's exactly what it says. Well, it's spelled VIN-SWE, right? And it's about jigsaw puzzles, and it will be showing, or every 6 months, there will be a new edition of scenic and historic sites in St. Vincent and Grenadines, right? And the reason for me starting that particular business was, to be honest, I got tired of seeing children on their gadgets all the time, right? I thought it was a good way to get them off it. I know that they're not going to be on it constantly, because once you fit up a jigsaw puzzle, chances are you're not going to necessarily go back to it. But I thought it was a good way to get them off of their devices for a little bit. And even for me as an adult fitting the puzzle, there was something that I noticed about myself that I'm sure that's going to be evident in children as well, is the lack of patience, because of the fact that I'm not in front of a tablet and I have to sit down and put a puzzle together. I lost patience very quickly. And I think one of the things that we tend to note, and if you, every year you're going to hear, especially with the analysis of math, is that, or the math results, is that you tend to find that children are doing poorly in math. And I think one of the reasons too is that they no longer take the time to figure things out, right? Everything, you say that we live in a 30-second culture where everything is on TikTok and so forth. It's if you can't get their attention in 30 seconds, then they lose interest completely, you know? But I think sometimes sitting down, having to use your knowledge, trying to fit pieces together and so forth, it helps to at least allow them that opportunity for at least a little while, until the puzzle is completed, to spend some time trying to figure things out or how to put things together. So that was the main reason for starting the Vinci Puzzles business, right? So I'm going to go right into the topic of taking the plunge. And it's sort of landing directly off of certain things that Shabazz would have said. So ever since the age of 18, I have been employed, or I was employed full-time by other persons. I've had 4 different jobs, and in that space of time as well, I went and studied. I did a degree in management as well as international relations, right? And the strange thing about it is that while it is that I was employed, while it is that I was doing my best, I don't think I have any employer or previous employer who would complain about the work that I've done. I was never fully happy, right? I was never fully satisfied with what I was doing. So about 7 years ago, I started Romax, and the business, as I say sometimes, the business landed directly in my lap. God said, this is yours, take it, run with it, right? So it got to a point after a few years of it being too much for me. It got to be too much for me to go to a full-time job. And as the business grew and expanded, for me to come home on an evening and on a weekend, for me to devote that time to my business, right? So this is like I'm taking care of my child when I have the time to, right? So it got to be too much for me, and I had to make that decision this year to go full-time into my own business. And the reason why I titled it Taking the Plunge is because I literally felt like I went to the edge of a cliff and jumped off. And it is as if I just needed for God to carry me and to see me through, because I kept saying, God, you gave this business to me. You're going to help me with it. You know, it wasn't an option at that point. He had to help me with it. So that was the reason why I did it. And I had a lot of internal struggle, because, you speak with persons, or I would have spoken with persons who I trusted their opinions on, and many persons would have been a bit nervous for me, right? Mainly because of the fact that I got to a point where I am indebted to the bank, right? I have a mortgage, and it's like you've worked all your life to get to this point, and you no longer have that safety net of being employed by somebody else, right? That money, that show money, is not going to be there anymore. And so persons were actually concerned about me taking that step. It's not so much to say that they didn't trust me or they thought that I didn't have the ability, but they knew the journey that I went through to get to that level, and they were concerned about it for me. And one of the things that I had to be careful with is the exposure of other person's fears onto me, because it's quite easy for you to stand from the outside. You're looking at my situation and you are fearful, and you're projecting that fear onto me. While it is, I am over here, trying to keep a happy face and that kind of thing, to keep myself going, praying, because I said the same prayer for 2 years every day. I said, God, make a way, right? And so I am here trusting in God, and they're there being fearful for me. But I had to do it. And I had to do it because it was just time for me to do it. I could no longer, the mental struggle of that you sometimes get to a point in your life where your life has to have some meaning. It has to have some purpose. And I'm the type of person, I look forward to getting up every day with a sense of purpose. I need to be able to know that my day is going to come for something. I am not going to be rolling out of bed. I'm not going to be groaning. I am not going to feel as if I am feeling unfulfilled. It was just not an option for me to live my life that way. So I said that I would make the decision and I would leave. And the thing about it is that in making the decision, while I was fearful, I think that I was backed into a corner and I didn't have an option other than to do it. Do I have regrets about it? No. But I will say that there were certain steps that I did have to take before doing it. I'm a person who thinks things through thoroughly, and I put certain things in place before doing such. So one of the things that I did, so as I said, Romax itself is in its 7th year. So by the time it's in its 7th year, I would have already had a wide range of products. And the interesting thing with my situation is that the pandemic is what caused me to expand the business into Romax customizations, because initially I started off with just the vehicle accessories. But because, and the biggest seller for me is the Vinci themed items. But because persons weren't traveling at that time, it allowed me the time to do other things. And this is how Romax customization was born. So leaving a full-time job meant that I had a wide range of products. So it's not just me sitting down waiting on someone to place an order for a vehicle accessory, but it can be a vehicle accessory, it could be another customized order. So it's a range of services that I had. So I had those things, I had that range in place before leaving. And I think that is important in terms of being able to spread yourself just in case, right? Before leaving as well, I would have been active on the social media platforms. Well, I only use Facebook and Instagram, right? So the business was active. So persons would see a weekly update. So it's not to say, yes, I started this business and every 2 months I'm posting. No, I'm posting on a weekly business, on a weekly basis. Whether or not persons like or they show a reaction to a post that I've made, the point is that they're seeing it and they know that the business is still active, right? At that point as well, the business would have been fairly well known. Now, of course, one of the things that I had to deal with was that whole mental struggle of, I need to do more with this business, but I don't have the time to do it, right? And one of the interesting things that happened, and when I said it takes you stepping back and trusting in God, was that had I not left my full-time job, certain opportunities that came my way would have left me with greater frustration, right? Recently, I completed the largest audit I ever had to do for one of the big companies here in Vinsburg. It's Curtis, right? And when they approached me with it, I said, had I not been doing my business full-time, I would have had to decline that opportunity, or I would have had to share it with someone else. Now, of course, I don't have a problem with sharing it, but the point is, you have to allow yourself the opportunity to have opportunities come your way. And sometimes that is what going full-time into your business allows you to do, right? Personally, so that they always say before you make this step of going full-time, you need to have at least 3 months covered and so forth. So I did have the 3 months covered in terms of savings. And when it got to the end of the 3 months, because of the fact that for all of my work in life, I have been a salaried employee in terms of every end of month, I would have received a salary. I had to mentally note how to transition from, let's say at the end of the month, having all of that money to cover my expenses, or as opposed to having the money. And of course, this is not, I'm sure some financial advisor out there is going to say that this is not the best advice, but it's what works for me, all right? At the end of the month, having enough money to cover the bills that are immediately due. And then over the course of the month, take care of the other expenses. But of course, within that month, taking care of all my financial obligations, right? So I think sometimes this is something that, as Shabazz would have said in his presentation, that entrepreneurs don't necessarily speak to each other. So it's almost as if I really had to figure that part of it out on my own. Now, mind you, I could have probably just reached out to somebody and asked, but sometimes you're like in your little space and you also don't want for someone to turn around and say, well, why did you leave your full-time job if you're going to, going to be running? So it's not a problem necessarily, but if you're going to be running into this situation, right? So that was one of the ways that I had to work around it.
It appears as if our panelists might have frozen. I'm not sure. You just allow her a few moments to come back. But in the meantime, allow the other panelists to just come in until she returns and just speak, to some of the very interesting points that she has said. And let me first, before we go to the panelists, let me acknowledge the guests on YouTube, on our YouTube Constructive Solutions Inc. YouTube channel. And we have some comments over here that I must apologize I didn't get to mention, but right. So we have Alita Garraway. She's an entrepreneur as well, one of our beneficiaries. She agrees that you should teach entrepreneurship in school, and that certain children will know where they fit in. We have Joylyn Dennis Lampkin. Mrs. Lampkin, I know, a very stalwart in St. Vincent in terms of pushing entrepreneurship, especially at the rural level. She says a very important point here, that the occupational standards used to deliver the skills training often carry a chapter on entrepreneurship. But the main challenge is that these TVET centers are not fully equipped for effectively delivering competence-based training and assessment beyond level 1, the apprentice level. And I understand fully where she's going there in terms of the quality of education and towards entrepreneurship, right? And as I said, it to me is like, in my words, like a brush over until you get probably into the college or so on, where they go a bit more in depth. So to just allow Miss Samuel to come back and now, before the other panelists actually go ahead, I see she's back. And welcome back, Miss Samuel.
All right, hi. I didn't even realize I didn't know what happened there. So my apologies to everyone. All right, let's see where I was. Okay, so I think I was given these steps that have worked for me. So
We
I
were
got to
talking about the method that you use in terms of your finances, or you cover the month.
Okay, right. So I got to that point. I was moving on to something else, right? Okay, so I was saying that one of the things that has worked to my advantage, and it's because of the fact that I worked for, well, let's say from leaving university, I worked for at least 13 plus years, right? So I was able to acquire certain things within that time frame. And what it meant was that I got to like my peak, and I just needed to know how to be able to maintain myself there, as opposed to a situation where I went full force into entrepreneurship, let's say the 13 years ago, and then I would have had to work to acquire certain things over time, which would have been harder. Because the thing of it is that we know how it goes with trying to acquire loans as a small business person. You know, business loans are not easy, much less the major decisions like a mortgage and so forth. So I tend to tell persons who are working full-time, if they have, if they wish to go into full-time work, into their own business, try to acquire what you need to acquire before you leave that job, right? Because it makes it easier. You know at the end of the month how much it is that you need to have in order to fulfill all of your financial obligations. So I was able to work myself backwards as opposed to doing it full-time 13 years ago and then trying to acquire things as I went along, right? How I'm faring now, so I said it's only been 5 months, so I can't speak with any great level of authority on this subject because I'm still learning as I go along, right? But how I'm faring now mentally, I am in a much better space. Yeah, and I keep telling people it's about the quality of life. I cannot fathom, let's say I'm working 40 years. And this is not knocking government employees or working with the government or working with any company for that matter of fact, right? But I always say that you have to be able to wake up every day with some sense of fulfillment. And I could not see myself personally working at a company just for job security. That alone could not have cut it for me, right? So now I am feeling in a much better mental space because I'm actually doing what it is that I want to do, what it is that I love, what it is I have a passion for, what God landed in my lap, right? So I'm learning to take things one day at a time, 1 month at a time. I did say that if after the first 3 months, if I did not make it, I would have just gone and looked for another job because the thing of it is that I do have my qualifications and I do have my work experience. So I'm not necessarily a person who may possibly find difficulty in gaining other employment. But I did need to do this for myself just to see if it could be done, to see how I feel within this space. Now, I don't know for how long I would be able to continue like this. I'm keeping my fingers crossed and I'm still praying, but it has been a good experience for me thus far. Yes, persons use the word brave when it is that I made that decision when I told them that I was doing it. Some persons saw it as bravery. I saw it as not having a choice. I still put in long hours. I don't know why it is. I thought that I was going to be working, getting up at 8 and working till 4. That has not been happening. I only ever had that one day, because even up to this morning, I was working till 3:30, had to get up at 7:30 to make deliveries in town and that kind of thing. So it's still long hours, but it's still long hours of fulfillment. I can't say if I would have been this calm about it if I was working for somebody else and had to be up till 3:30. I would have probably been grumbling about that situation. But the point of it is that once it's yours, you find the energy, you find the strength. And of course, I have now been able to enjoy a little bit more of a downtime because I have stipulated days when I say no work. So a Friday, I don't do any actual work, but I take that time to myself. Do deliveries, go in town and just relax. Sometimes I would take a Saturday off. That was not possible for me before when I was working full time and had the business otherwise. One of the interesting things is that I got to borrow this book, Entrepreneurs of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. This was written by Luke Brown a few years ago. And I have been reading the stories of other entrepreneurs in Vinci. And I'm using this as my guide because while it is that I've only been doing the business for 5 months, part of me still does not feel as if I've gotten to where it is I need to be. And that's understandable. But reading the stories of these other entrepreneurs, I have to remind myself that they did not attain their success until many years later. Now, I do not want to wait until I'm 60 to, totally enjoy life and finish paying off a mortgage and that kind of thing. I want to be living my life at least in 5 years' time. But the point is that reading their stories has allowed me to know that their Rome was not built within a day. And I just need to be patient with myself, set my goals, and work towards them. But I have no regrets about the decision that I made. So, okay, and that's my presentation.
Okay, thank you so much. You made some very interesting points there. And, I must salute you. I know that even me was not even aware that, we worked, I know your business and everything from before, but I was not even aware that you had gone full time until, and I know that we had talked about this. This is something that you were aspiring to doing, but, you made the point there, trusting while being fearful. That is such, I remember when I was in Barbados and I went to the library at, with Dr. Brandon was, and I had this book about the same issue, jumping into business when you're fearful. And, to hear you come back now and talk about it, this is something that I think that, as you say, that we don't talk about. People usually paint business and entrepreneurship as this get rich, wealthy, nice wine, nice vehicle, but they hardly tell you about that fear. Look, many nights, as you say, at 3:30 in the morning, you got burn candles, you're the only light that on. Many mornings you don't sleep because, as you said, you have to deliver, and imagine you're finishing at 3:30 in the morning and by 7 you got to be in Kingston. You've got to be there and you can't even make any excuses, right? And a lot of people don't realize that it's not just about making the order, getting the order, collecting the money, but what happens in between that gap, and the thing that I love that you said that, you are in a better mental space. I really love that. And in order for you to do all of these other things that you mentioned, you have to be in that mental space. A lot about entrepreneurship, as I've learned over the years, has to do with your mindset and your mental space. Along with the support and the other things, it has a lot to do with the entrepreneur. And if you are not ready for it mentally, it is going to be a challenge until you get it. The other thing that I picked out from you was that your story was like, it wasn't one, for example, like you just arrived on the table overnight. And like they said, you didn't become a 3-day expert then. You took 13 years working, studies, all the other things, and then you're saying now, oh, I'm only doing 5 months, but like people, that is a lot of clarity that I think that a lot of people need to understand about entrepreneurship. It takes time. And the key thing that, finding that passion and that purpose and run with it, regardless of how scared you may be, that is the thing that God put on my lap. That is the thing that I love to do. I am going all the way with it, and I want to, this is my peeve, so I could go all night on it, but I know we have some panelists here that want to dive in on this one, taking the plunge. Wow. That was a deep one. Thank you so much, Ms. Samuel. Let us hear from the other panelists, as we continue.
Well, let me jump in here. Age before beauty. I really have to congratulate you. I mean, I sat there and I listened to your story. You actually told your story. It is a fantastic case study, whether or not you know it or recognize it. And I picked out so many gems, so many learning points for new entrepreneurs and even for students, for people in general. I mean, I used to say this all the time, but I heard Ingrid Riley, who is one of our tech entrepreneurs in this region, she also reiterates it, that life and entrepreneurship is not a sprint. It is not a sprint. It is a journey. So the same way you're living your life is the same way you're building your business. And it was so important to hear you tell the stories about how you took reasonable, calculated risks. You didn't just jump in. You planned. You strategically analyzed your business so that you could actually implement what you wanted to do. That you did the contingency planning. You spoke about the consistency. You're putting things up every month or every week, and you're doing it whether people commented on it or not. That's consistency. That's how you build. And when I talk about pounding the pavement, that's what I mean. You know, I consistently say, and I'll say it again, if I had a different husband, I wouldn't be married today, because I literally pounded the pavement. I attended every cocktail party. I attended everywhere things were happening. I was there. And now I don't want to do it anymore. It's like that. Been there, done it. I genuinely don't want to do it anymore. But that was pounding the pavement. People would say, man, I see you everywhere. You are everywhere. You're in everything. Yes. Because that is how you build. And that is how you build strong roots. And this is important for us to know, because even as you say, you perhaps will never, yes, big up my husband, man. You good support. You will never perhaps stay in entrepreneurship, and I think you will though, but you perhaps will never stay in running your own business. But at the same time, you have built such strong roots that you can move on to something else. The skills you pick up, the skills you learn running your business, same skills you can use into doing anything else. And you had skills before. You move from being an employer or from being an employee into employing yourself. And I'm sure you're going to be employing others. It takes a different mindset. And I know mentally, you say you're in a much better place than you were 5 months ago. And I know 5 months from now, you'll be in a different place, because that's the mindset. Yeah. It's important that you look after yourself. So I'm happy to hear that you're taking days off, you're taking downtime. Make sure, because as I say to entrepreneurs, and I perhaps at this stage, I'm not doing it so well myself, but I like to say that you have to be sound in every alley when you're an entrepreneur, spiritually, physically, mentally. Well, financially is good, but sometimes we're not always there. And that's what is important. Life is a cycle, yeah? And emotionally, yeah? Things won't always be the same, but the trick is we consistently strive to make sure that we are balancing, that we are trying to stay in the same, or grow. As we grow, we're growing with things that are going to make us work. And I hear you talk about faith. Faith is important, but if you don't balance faith with works, you don't know, nothing will get implemented. So faith and works. And I know that you're balancing faith and works, because you talk about how you are doing your work. And having faith like a mustard seed is extremely important. They say us as entrepreneurs or entrepreneurial people are psychotic. We are insane. That's sort of true, because some things that we do, people are like, Miss Gordon, who perhaps is online with us, always said, man, you're so mad and you're always surrounded by mad people. I'm like, yeah, true that. I mean, but hey, you know, that's life. And I worked the entire weekend, haven't rested yet. And since 2020, I've been just going like insane. That's not good though. It's nothing to boast about. I'm not boasting about it. I need to rest because mentally, physically, and emotionally, we have to be strong. So yeah, I think those are the gems I picked up. I really love your story. I would again implore us when we talk about ecosystem and inclusion, I would implore us or implore you and everybody else who's online to connect more, share more, find people where they are, find them, go out and look for them, find them, bring them in. I mean, I also have to caution that some people, your vision, mission, and values, make sure when you're looking for people, your vision, mission, and values align, because you will find that, yeah, gotta have that alignment. And I like to also say not all money is good money. Find the alignment. Don't take all the money that you can get. I know you won't do it, but just for other entrepreneurs as well, be careful. You know, choose who you align with, choose who you, what you do when you do, and build forward better. And I just want to wish you all the very best. And if you want to call on me anytime, please feel free.
Thank you so much. Before we continue, just let us remind our viewers that tonight we are at the Global Entrepreneurship Week, St. Vincent and the Grenadines Entrepreneurial Roundtable. We are talking business in St. Vincent, and our theme is developing an effective ecosystem for entrepreneur development across St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Let me just quickly touch our YouTube guests. Rosie Samuel, good evening to you. We have Cumulative Architectural Designs. They said that there need to be more institutions where entrepreneurs can go to learn more about the marketing the businesses, as well as how to go about dealing with taxes. We had a comment from Mrs. Lampkin. They need a more vibrant chamber of industry and commerce to lead in shaping private sector development and create the enabling environment for business to operate. To our Facebook Live fans, good evening, Miss Bridget King. I know you're here supporting your daughter, Laverne. Good to see that. I really love that support. Good evening to our partner from St. Kitts and Nevis, Catherine Dorr. She's with us. Good evening, Ambassador Ariel Laidlaw Ferdinand. She was one of the judges of the Entrepreneurship World Cup for St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Now, I am going to call up Laverne King on this one, right? Because recently I had the honor, I would say, the humble honor of sitting in a training workshop with Miss King, and she kept driving home to the entrepreneurs. If you want this business to work, you have to allow the potential consumers to feel the emotion. And as you were speaking, Ms. Samuel, I can tell you, I got chills. I felt, although I have been an entrepreneur for more than 2 decades, I have been working and developing entrepreneurs for over a decade. That story hit me. It really made me emotional. And it reminded me of what Laverne was teaching in her marketing class, right? Sorry, in the marketing training she was doing. And you know, it is good that you were not even present at that session, but it just came out strong. So that is why I go straight for Laverne on that one, in terms of really, and hoping that people understood what you said in terms of bringing that emotion towards your business and the value of telling your story and your brand and so on. So over to you, Ms. King.
Yeah,
Sorry
actually, I was
like that, but I didn't have a choice.
That's fine. I was hoping to bring in a little bit of that in my short presentation next, but I'm a talker, so whether it's now or later, I'm happy to share. Yeah, we recently did a workshop in the Grenadines, and we were talking to fellow small business owners, talking with them about how can you get your brand to really connect with people. And one of the things I've always had to tell people is stop just selling. Everybody's trying to sell you something. And the truth is, even ads that are invasive as a marketer, I can tell you, they're now annoying. So something pop up, you just exit out and you move on. What is more important is telling a story and building a narrative that people can connect with. What is more important is building a community where people feel as though there's common and shared values. And I think that when I start to go into that, I'm starting to go a little bit into my presentation. But having listened to really, how do I say your name is Relisa?
Correct.
Yeah. So having listened to you, I've seen your stuff. And for the love of me, I always I'm going to buy one of those things on my stair. I haven't bought one yet, but I imagine that when I do buy one, that's where I'm going to buy one. And I'm one of those people who've seen your content, never interact with it, but I always see it. And I also like to tell people all the time that if you're a true friend and a true small business owner, one of the ways that you can support a small business owner without even spending $1 is by interacting with their content and actually liking it. But you're persistent as somebody who does digital marketing. I can say that content is king. Content is king. And once you keep pushing it out there, I've spoken to, yes, Shabazz, I see you laughing. There's no pun intended because my name is Lavon King, but content is king, and content that connects with people, where people can see themselves. I tell a story all the time that I bought my first laptop bag from a company called Brescia in Jamaica. And I bought it from them because Brescia has a thing where when you buy a bag from them, they give back to homes for girls who were abused in some way, whether it was sexually or, different forms of abuse. And it's a cause that I identify with. And so now if you see me walking around Kingston, I have a Brescia bag, a Brescia purse, a Brescia this, a Brescia that. And my lunch bag, when I moved back to St. Vincent, because I studied at Mona, and I moved back to St. Vincent, I have my lunch kit made from Brescia. It's kind of crazy, but the truth is this: when you're able to connect with people on an emotional level and you find that they share the same values than you, that's better than just get 2 for 1, get 1 for this, because at the end of the day, when you start marketing from a pricing-based proposition, all you're doing is ultimately playing a race to the end, and you'll never have a loyal customer base that way. And so my encouragement to people as a marketer is always, what is the story that I am telling about my brand that people can follow, and how can people connect with this so that we build a community and not just me trying to sell a one-off piece of item to someone.
Thank you so much, Ms. King. I see that the other panelists are eager, so I'm going to let them rate and go right ahead. Miss Aline seems ready, so she can go ahead.
Sure. So yes, Rosita, thank you so much for your presentation, and just to be in harmony with the other comments. What stood out to me in your presentation, Relisa, was I think you're experiencing what so many, or you have experienced what so many entrepreneurs experience, and that syndrome is called imposter syndrome, where you figure that you are a fraud, right? And you have that self-doubt ever so often. And certainly, my advice to anyone who feels that way is to ensure that you surround yourself with individuals who can uplift you. And, I've been very fortunate to have family and friends who do that. I could call them, whenever I doubt myself with, going this route. And, they would talk me through, well, why do you feel that way? And I think we need to have those individuals who can really assist us. Dr. Brandon spoke about her husband, who better to have than, your spouse, your best friend to really, lift you up. And, so that is really, my comment with regards to that, whenever you have that self-doubt, maybe it's, you need to talk to yourself in the mirror. Why are you feeling that way? And, have your team, your squad to support you. Thanks.
So much, Mr. George.
I'm sitting here and I'm really, really enjoying being part of this session. Though we're very different and though our industries or business are different, there are things that unify us as entrepreneurs. Listening to Ms. Samuel speak, I was just sitting here smiling because there is a great sacrifice. I think there's a misconception out there where people think that abandoning your day job and starting a business automatically mean you step out from a traffic jam basically to waking up at 11 o'clock in the day, just stretching your arms and then going to the beach because everything is just running so much in the background. That is not the reality. The reality is when you choose to start a business, you're choosing to raise a child. And the younger this child is, the more attention this child requires. In the first month, this child is going to be constantly whining. There's going to be a lot of 4 a.m. sleeps, waking up at 7 o'clock on 2 hours sleep, really getting to work at 9 o'clock and looking at yourself and you're just shivering. But all of that, when you're building something, you have to make sacrifices, and not a lot of emphasis is placed on the sacrifice element of building a business. So a lot of people come willy-nilly thinking, everything is supposed to go smooth from me from here on out. I just need to go down to SEPA, register this business, get a business name registered, and it's all going to just fit into place. No, it's not like that. It's a lot of sleepless nights. It's a lot of questioning yourself. Is this the right idea? Is this exactly what I want to provide? Is this the service I want to give? That's one of the challenges I have had starting out 7 years ago. We didn't start doing what we were doing now. I was doing dresses. I was making dresses. Then I moved from making dresses to doing masks, and I moved from doing masks to doing catering. And then it was event planning. So there was a loop between different things until I found what worked for me. I could have given up after the first thing I tried. Didn't give me what I expected to get from it. I could have given up. But the second thing I tried didn't give me what I expected from it either. But as long as you understand that this is what you want for yourself, as you said, when you say it was gifted to you, as long as you understand that there's a higher calling on your life, as long as you understand, yes, I could sit in this chair from 9 to 4, I could type the best document, I could put all of the information into this spreadsheet for my boss, and I could leave here and go home not feeling fulfilled. As long as you believe that there's a calling on your life to offer more, to provide more, you have to follow that calling, or you're going to be constantly miserable. Support, you have to be willing to support yourself, unless you're like Mrs. Brandon, who is the luckiest person on earth to have support at home with you. You have to be willing to support yourself. It's very daring, it's very different to want to walk against the tide. It's very hard. I mean, especially when young people in our age group, I mean, it's our nice time. Like, where is the next all-inclusive party? Where is the next, I mean, what is the latest dress? I mean, I'm spending 8 hours today on TikTok. Let me immerse myself into what it is to be young. I'm struggling now with what it is to be young, because when I was quite young, I spent most of my time in politics. And when I wasn't in politics, I was trying to build a business. Boo-hoo, me trying to be great.
You're not that old, you're still in your 20s. Relax yourself.
I turned 25 last week, and I'm still wondering, did I do something right by trying to be, I mean, my friends describe it as over-accomplished when I'm very young, or did I do the right things by putting measures in place for me to have a more sustainable future, not necessarily waiting on a paycheck in order to eat food? I mean, there are times I have waited on a paycheck to eat food, but that's all the struggle that goes into building a business. And I was comfortable waiting because I know that this paycheck is just one of many to come. So I understand your story, really, and I relate to it. Really quickly, Langron spoke about brand identity. and making people feel a part of your brand. And I think ever so often, that is something we miss as new entrepreneurs. And I've explained this to a friend recently, and we tend to, when we're starting a business now, because of the lack of resources, we tend to go online, and everything we find online, we take the models, we take the concepts, and we run with them. Um, and most of the time, those models and those concepts are built for a European market or an American market, completely unrelatable to our people. I always said, OT will be around longer than quotes, because OT is RV store. And I don't think people understand the psychology behind that. RV store means it belongs to me. I remember my grandmother feeling so much pride having her trace it from OT, because she could brag that this was built in diamond here in St. Vincent. It came from here, it didn't come on any boat from here. And it took me a while to understand that. It took me a while to understand that she was happy that this item that she invested in was something that she sourced locally, and it was made by local for local. And she was happy to go back and patronize that business because she saw herself in it, and she felt like she belonged, and she felt the need to patronize this service, because in her head, this is one of her own. Although she's paid for it, yes, she's paying for it. It's her money. She's paid for it, but there was a different sense of ownership, owning this thing that is her own. I've seen your products. I absolutely love your products. Unfortunately, like Lavon, I'm not in a position where I'm home driving around anymore, so I can get some blinged out gear for my car. But soon and very soon, I will get some. I assure you that. So guys, thank you so much for sharing with me your stories. So as an inspiration, Risha, I really appreciate your accent, because both of us sound very Trinidadian, and that's fine. I'm very happy to share with you guys. I'm very happy to learn from you as this discussion moves forward. I'm getting slightly sleepy, but forgive me. It's just over midnight here.
Yes, thank you, Mr. George. I know that you are joining us from the UK at this time, so I know it takes a sacrifice to even do that. I have a comment here from Alita Gabriel. She says that once the business is yours, you have to do a lot of sacrifices, a lot of sleepless nights to achieve your goals. Laverne, I have a comment especially for you. And the person says, well, I am finally able to put a face to that name, and especially that voice. And you know, of Miss Laverne King. So you see, you were right, you know, putting yourself out there consistently. There are people who know your voice, you know, but they can connect the face. So you have someone now that can actually say, I know her now, you know. And
Is this person? Is this person on YouTube?
Yes, I have a name, Rosie Samuel. Okay, right. Now I want to, as we go towards the next presenter, I want to first acknowledge some of the other persons from the diaspora that is with us tonight. I see Silnet Forger, Mika Alex in Canada. I know that they're in Canada. And for all the other persons, I see Suwan Williams Baptiste, Edna Jack Pilgrim. If there's anyone that I have missed, you know, it's just that we cannot see it from the Facebook Live. But thank you so much for joining us. And I'm not seeing any comments coming up on Facebook Live. I don't know if it's my device. And I want to, if there are any, I want to apologize to those persons on Facebook Live. If any of my panelists are seeing them, and you could, you know, just let me know, because I'm not seeing any. I know sometimes that it gives a challenge like this, you know, with the bandwidth and so on. And it's only after the live that I get to see some of these other comments. So I do apologize for that. As we continue, I just want to highlight that St. Vincent and the Grenadines faces an array of emerging economic challenges. These include the effects of globalization. And for those who don't understand that, the preferential market is gone. It's gone. Nobody feels no more for the Caribbean, or if it's a small island state. You have to compete with the Africa, you have to compete with the America, you have to compete with the UK, the China, the Japan, open market now. Before they had certain privileges where we would get, you know, a little ease between their true licensing and so on. That is gone. So it creates economic problems for us. We have a migration of skilled labor, and we talk about brain drain. A lot of our skilled people are looking to other shores for better opportunities. The increasing competition in terms of the exports, and some other issues like vulnerability to climate events and fluctuations in the global economy. Now, this private sector is characterized by a predominance of small and micro enterprises. What we mean by that, if you look around Kingston, for example, if you drive any part of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, the most you will see is people with small setups all over the island. And that is okay. That is the type of environment that we are in. We want to scale it up, but that is what it is. So there's a large number of that, and we know that there are a number of issues there. Private sector development in St. Vincent and the Grenadines is constrained by, as we talked about before, the technical capacity, how the institutional capacity of the associations that we don't have in place, and access to capital, money, if for a better word, access to that money. And Laverne King mentioned it earlier when she spoke about, we don't have that development banking structure anymore. Critical, right? And I think that the best person I could have asked to speak on this next topic, having just won the St. Vincent and the Grenadines Entrepreneurship World Cup finals, we are actually honored to have her with us tonight. And she's also, she's going to tell you a bit about herself, but I think it was significant that, for me, that when I was looking into who Risha Allen was, I recognized that this was not the only competition she had entered across the region. What that told me was that this is an entrepreneur, a woman who is determined to find any way possible to get development funding to make her business work. And let me correct that, any way possible, anywhere wholesome. Okay, right? So without further ado, I would like to introduce to the panel tonight, Miss Risha Allen, to talk about, the impact of development funding and what is her views in this area. So over to you, Miss Allen.
Thank you, Dr. John. May you make me a co-host, please?
Okay.
Okay. So good evening, everyone. My name is Risha Allen, founder of the Sustainable Earth Farms and Distributors. And my business is a social enterprise, and it's a startup, female-run agribusiness, which seeks to promote agritourism, capacity building, education, and the production of organic, healthy, sustainable food in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. As Dr. John mentioned, yes, I have participated in other business entrepreneurship programs, business incubator. The most recent one was the OECS GGGI Eastern Caribbean Greenpreneurs Program for 2021. And for another, business idea, my colleague and I was one of the individuals who received a US grant. And I also participated in Helen's Daughters. They are a social enterprise in St. Lucia. I participated in their Women's Farmers Academy, where female farmers from St. Vincent and the Grenadines, we were taught on various topics: sustainable agriculture, food safety, and financial literacy. So there are many different opportunities to seek training, to seek funding. And with regards to my startup in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, I am certainly seeking funding to establish my business. And yes, I am certainly quite honored to be the winner for the Entrepreneurship World Cup for St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And this Sunday, I'll be participating in the regional competition. So certainly this week is quite busy for me. And let me share my screen, because Dr. John asked me to talk on the topic. The need for development funding. Now, certainly you would appreciate that in any society, there is the need for funding for money, whether it is to create jobs, which of course will bring about an increase in productivity, leading to a boost in the economy. And certainly in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, there's a need for development funding to boost the economy. However, there are some challenges that my colleagues and I have identified. And of course, this is not an exhaustive list. There are many challenges for entrepreneurs within St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and I just want to highlight 4 of them. So the first one is lack of knowledge of funding opportunities and even lack of access to funding opportunities. Entrepreneurs have said that the application process is a bit difficult because they may not be tech savvy and they may only have access to mobile phones. So you could understand their limitation to that. Unfortunately, there's an absence of non-partisan, transparent, honest institutional framework to allow for persons to benefit from funding. Most of the opportunities you would see are all about technology, ICT, innovation. So that certainly, excludes individuals who may not necessarily go in that direction. The fact that programs such as Prime and the Women's Empowerment Program are oversubscribed proves that there's a need for such programs. The second challenge that I've identified is the criteria for most funding agencies. And I personally experienced this with the Agricom project that was implemented a few years ago, where as an individual, I could not apply for funding. So I had to join up with individuals I didn't know to be able to, to be eligible for this funding. Unfortunately, after weeks of training, lots of time to fill out the application process, we probably didn't get as much points to be able to go to the next step. So certainly, the group of us, we were quite despondent because, we really felt it was a waste of time. So that is, another situation where, as in, for some of these funding opportunities, as an individual, you cannot move forward. Unfortunately, you would find, as was brought out by my colleagues earlier in their presentation, that persons are not informed about financial literacy. So you will find that persons don't have proper records. And this again puts them at a disadvantage in getting funding, in also, being able to work with certain organizations. There's also the issue of an absence of monitoring and evaluation tools. Persons, when they call to find out about, their application for funding, they get the runaround or their application is lost. Okay, so of course that could be quite frustrating. A third challenge, which is indeed a very interesting challenge, is that of there's a need for a culture of entrepreneurial mindset, right? We've probably become too dependent on the government and we need to move out of our comfort zone and we have to become less complacent. All right, we need to have that drive to, keep learning about new technologies and also to research funding opportunities. And as Dr. John mentioned, I'm always looking for opportunities to improve myself professionally and to be able to see how I can boost my business and my business idea. The last point that I have is inadequate training, not only in financial literacy, but also entrepreneurship, marketing, and trade. So, over the years, maybe the government wasn't really focused on human capital. So they weren't really promoting entrepreneurship. But now we see with the pandemic, there is this fervor of, training, or you might see opportunities in the region. There needs to be training also for marginalized or vulnerable groups. Very, very important. And there's a need for professionals and technical people to join the groups and to help them so that they can move forward. If we are to see ourselves as a nation where we can export our products, we need to be trained in international standards, and we need to get the required certifications. Unfortunately, they are very expensive, and the sole trader, the small business, is unable to afford such training. So here are some of my proposed solutions. There needs to be greater transparency, okay, with regards to the opportunities. We need to be able to encourage more applicants, not only those who are tech savvy and have those resources. And then there's the all-important need for development and enforcement of policies. I believe one of my colleagues alluded to that earlier. The application process needs to be a lot simpler, friendlier for persons, and there needs to be money available for startups and business ideas, not only businesses that have been established for years. If we want to generate entrepreneurship and boost the economy, we need to give everyone a chance. With regards to building and nurturing an entrepreneurial culture, we need to teach it from primary school. And we also need to, have that entrepreneurship education for persons who are, adults. All right. As Rolisa mentioned, as an adult, she decided that she wanted to be an entrepreneur. Also myself, I never saw myself at school saying, oh, I want to own a business. It's only later on where, that desire came about. And then lastly, very important, especially for, our colleagues in the Grenadines, we need to have virtual and in-person training. Those who are not on the mainland, they're at a disadvantage. So we need to ensure that that is wider. And again, the importance of training according to international standards. So those are my points. And I certainly thank you for the opportunity to share them, and I'm open to dialogue. Thank you.
Thank you so much. You have gone in my territory. Let me put it like that. I can go off on this. Really go off. But, I will say this to you, right, Miss Aline. Just what you presented, there's a reason I came back to St. Vincent. I was in Barbados for many years. And one thing that I really loved my mother would do, and this is what a lot of Vincentians don't know. My choice of a vacation place every summer was St. Vincent. It wasn't America, it wasn't Canada, it was St. Vincent. My mother would make sure that I came back home. So in coming back home during those periods, here was the thing, right? Barbados schools closed at a different time than St. Vincent, and they reopened. So I got to see children going to school and so on. And I saw some things that was like, I've never in my life seen this. And this is some years ago, right? Unlike Shabazz, I think I could say that again a little old now, but it was quite a while ago. And let me just give one little example that people overlooked at that time. It was unheard of for me to see school children going to school without shoes on. That was like, I stared at that thing like, what is going on here? And I was young. I was much younger at the time. I was still in school. But for me, that was a shock. I can understand it because in Barbados, I grew up there from 2. I never seen that, right? So for me, I couldn't understand it. The good thing about it, though, I did not see it as to insult Vincentians, but to find out what was happening there. And then the other thing I couldn't understand was why children will walk these gourmet hills. And I mean, you know, gourmet hills really up mountains and walk back, come down on mornings, go up at break time, come back down, go up at lunchtime, come back down. And then, I mean, like, I can't even walk these things one time too much. And these young children was doing this thing like strong. I mean, like, that's the norm, you know, and that is where this social entrepreneurship birthed in me. I wanted to do something about it because I know it was not what I was accustomed to. It took me some years to come back. And I'll be honest with you, it burns me up to this very day. When I come across so many of these entrepreneurs, I know they have great products. I usually would get a gift from Rolisa. And I took it overseas and someone felt that I bought that from an international airport while I was traveling and coming in. And I had it in a nice bag and everything. Yes, please. They didn't know it was made in St. Vincent and the Grenadines by an entrepreneur, right? And that is what I did. I felt proud doing that. But she might be one of the fortunate ones. How many are getting that opportunity, right? And not because I was one that thought when I came back, let me be real. I mean, like, wrong with these young people here? Come on, let me go. Until I get the shock of what they have to face. One, the economic situation they were in. They don't have the money to start a business. Let me start fooling ourselves. Many of the parents now who even got children in university have to go and remortgage the homes, all kind of things just to get them the children in college. I mean, I've been real here tonight, right? So then when it comes to business now, a lot of people don't have the funds to start. They got the ideas, yes, they want to do it. They don't have the right knowledge. They don't have the ecosystem. It's foreign to them. I mean, you know how much licks I get as a Vincentian having a Bajan accent? Because they're not even accustomed to working with help from other places. It was like, if you don't have this Vincentian accent, or you know, you out to rugby, you out to, people think that I'm here to take the jobs. And I mean, like, get real, right? I am doing what we're supposed to be doing in the country, building an ecosystem to help people, right? It came, you know, I had an experience where I had to go and accompany an entrepreneur to the bank in an interview. And that is where it hit home to me. You presenting a property to the bank for 350,000 EC dollars. You want to have a loan for your business for 50,000 EC. And you know what the bank is saying? I love your plan, great plan, but hey, to get this, you got to put down at least 30,000 EC on an account in the event that this business didn't work. I understand the bank, I do, but at the same time, no funding. What are these people going to do? And I come across many of them on a regular basis. They've got the ideas, they want to do it, but they don't have the funding. And I really love the points that you brought up. I mean, I could go off on this, but I have to bow to the panelists, you know, but I can go off on this thing. And I think that needs to become another discussion at another time, where we can really dig into that you presented. It needs to be done in this country. It is a need. It can no longer be ignored. We cannot become sustainable if we don't have development funding to do it with. It is impossible. So over to the panelists.
All right, so let me just interject with a few things here. While it is that, yes, we look at funding as being a hindrance for some persons, I tend to find that persons don't want to start, right? But of course, it depends on the industry or the sector that they're looking to get into. But you tend to find that persons sit back and say that unless they're able to get a $15,000, they can't start the business. In many cases, what they fail to realize is that it takes steps. And one of the things that I've come to notice and appreciate is that persons are not just going to hand you free money. right? You have to show some signs that you can actually do the business. You're going to put in the work, you're going to start the business, you find ways in terms of marketing or markets, etc., right? But persons seem to think that unless they're able to get this loan from the bank, that they cannot go forward, when in many cases, all you need to do is start with the funds that you have. When I look at the way in which I started my business, it was all out of pocket. And maybe this is one of the benefits of me working full-time at that time, because of the fact that whatever money it is that I made, my salary was what helped to fund the business, what helped to fund Romax. But it started from there, and I built as I grew along. And persons have actually been able to approach me. And this is how it is I got to expand the business as well, because a friend, through seeing my efforts, she's like, so what it is that you need that can help you to expand your business? And that is how I ended up with my first embroidery machine, because a friend, seeing my work, seeing my efforts, decided to become an investor by getting me an embroidery machine. So I think sometimes that we have a problem where persons think that unless they get help, or unless they get that lump sum of cash in their hands, that they cannot make a start, when you can actually make a start, right? But persons are not going to help unless they actually see your efforts. Along with the thing of grants, or the topic of grants, people need to realize that Google is their friend. Too many persons I hear sitting back waiting for a Prime grant. Now, I'm going to make a full disclosure that I was one of the recipients of the Prime grant, right? But I do have a little bit of an issue with the way in which things were done. And this would lend to a point that Shabazz made in his presentation, in terms of after that second batch of persons, and I was in the second batch of persons, we don't know who got the grants, right? And I have a serious problem with that. I am not in the business of being in people's business. It's not a macro situation. I don't want to know how much money the person got. What it is I would like to know is what the businesses and the services are in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, so I can be able to support these businesses. When you don't have that disclosure of who got whatever under Prime in particular, because I know the Women's Empowerment, you know who the recipients were, but under Prime itself, that non-disclosure, and I know that there is a whole political aspect around it. I don't care about that. I just want to know who it is, whatever businesses and services are present on the country, so that I can give that support. But while it is that, yes, you have sent in your application for Prime, you have not gotten a call back, your application hasn't been processed or whatever, why are you just sitting down and waiting on Prime? Why don't you go to Google and see? And I always say that as women, we are at an advantage here, because of the fact that one, I could look at it in my context. One, I am female, I am of African descent, and I'm in the Caribbean. And being in the Caribbean means that I can state, for St. Vincent and the Grenadines, we're a small island developing state. I can fit under that particular type of category, under those three things, to be able to qualify for particular grants that are out there. So you have to be able to use Google. But of course, it also comes back to the business that you have. And you know that there are a lot of programs, or there are grants available out there for women entrepreneurs. And I also have to take a point from what Risha would have said, in that many small business persons do not keep proper records. And if you don't keep proper records, whenever you're going to apply for a grant, they're going to be asking you for at least 3 years of financial statements, right? If you have already started, they're going to at least ask for that. Now, your statements don't have to be any fancy kind of thing. You just keep the proper records. And if you need to have it present audited statements, then of course you have to outsource that if you're not good at accounts. I am not good at accounts. I would gladly hand those over to somebody else. But the point is that the accountant would have the basic information which to start with. So, you know, I think that we look at things as being a challenge. We look at things in the context of just St. Vincent and the Grenadines, but there are other aspects that you can look into in terms of getting grants, but the work has to start with you.
I think,
Excellent, excellent. Go ahead, Laverne, go ahead.
yeah, I think that there was just so much coming out of Miss Allen's Risha's presentation. I especially as a Grenadines woman loved how you remember to mention the Grenadines in your presentation. I think that one of the things, and as also somebody who is involved in digitization of businesses, one of the things that we ought to always remember, somebody don't always need to come to your office physically to apply for something. I think one of the greatest challenges in St. Vincent is that for everything, you still have to go into a business space. You still have to go into the government office. Come on, guys. COVID should have taught us so much about how we move forward in a digital era, about how we provide alternative and how we could provide for people who are even disabled and so forth. So I think that a lot of people went back to business as usual after COVID. I mean, I consider now after COVID, even though people still think, that we're still dealing with it. I think that a lot of people went back straight into the same old practices. I do think, however, that one of the things that we need to look at is not every small business owner is going to have like all the track records, all the financial stuff and so forth in place. And that's where mentorship comes in. A lot of people who are doing startups, I could speak for myself. I'm a good implementer. I'm a good idea person. I'm a good write out everything on a whiteboard type of person. But when it comes on to doing a document, I could go and pitch. But when it comes on to doing, I hate doing that aspect of it. That doesn't make me a poor entrepreneur. But what it means is that is one of the skill sets that I need a partner or a business partner to possess so that we could, work better. And in doing scholarships and grants, that's one of the things where mentorship comes in, which, and I have to comment on Prime only because it was mentioned by the other two commenters, panelists before me. I think that I think the concept of Prime is okay, but I do think that it is a fundamentally flawed initiative. I think so because the unfortunate thing about Prime is that it was introduced in a time in which there was a high political atmosphere in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And as such, a lot of people are looking to see who got it, who didn't get it, and stuff like that. I think that my thing with it, when it comes on to government funding, I always want to know how much it is and who it went to. Because government money is public fund money. It says my money, it is your money. And therefore, I appreciate the disclosure of that because I'm a believer in transparency. And the more transparent you are as a government, it will help me to believe that you're not using a grant program to bribe people into votes or to get influential entrepreneurs on your side. And so for me, I appreciated when I knew who got it and the amounts different people got, and then I would have also appreciated if that program was complemented with some form of mentorship and follow-up so that it's just not an award. Here's some money, take it and go. I would appreciate that this is an initiative that can truly benefit young entrepreneurs, but let's do it right. Let's give the young people some money, but guess what? Some of them haven't been in existence for more than 1 year, 3 months or whatever. And we all as business people know that it is so hard to get past the first 2, 3, 4, 5 years. And as such, that's where mentorship comes into this program. And that's why developing it as a whole program and not just dishing out money would have been the correct approach in which I think it should have been done. I still do think that it can come back, because people are saying it's still around, but the truth is election done, the money seems to be done too. But I wish it can come back, but with like Prime 2.0, where people can actually get mentorship to coincide with it. I think that was one of the deficits with that program. I think that most other grants that you get, it is disclosed how much you get and who gets what. I think the women mentorship, the women entrepreneurship one that just finished with the Taiwanese, you know who got it and how much they got. So for me, I would like to know those things. I do think that again, on the point of availability of funding, I was talking just recently to somebody who's not more than 35 years old, and I think that we still count 35 as youth these days. He's a fisherman from the Grenadines, and he wanted to buy an engine for his boat. And he was saying, Lala, boy, you know, I already saved half of it. I went to the bank. I can't get it because I don't have a job letter at this or that. But this is a fisherman for X number of years, right? He comes from a family of fisherfolk. And that's where a development bank comes in. That's where specialized programs for people like that should come in. And I think that we as a nation, we don't do a good job of providing funding for people in the arts, people in the orange economy, people in the blue economy. And I think that when we plan our economy, when we plan our country, we have to look beyond just in our small island developing states, not just in Vincent and the Grenadines. We have to look beyond just a 5-year period of programs for votes, because it's not just in St. Vincent. We have to look at, I am the leader of my country now. Where do I want this country to be in the next 20 years? And so when we look at the sustainable development goals, when we think about how we get our country there, we have to think, when I have an education program, is my education program only geared towards a revolution where people only get scholarships to become doctor, lawyer, teacher? No, we have to think about, what about people who are into music? What about people who are into the arts? What about people who are into entrepreneurship? You know, stuff like that. And that's where I think that development bank comes in. And that's where I also think that like quotas and different types of scholarships and so forth comes in as well when we look at funding and development.
So much. And we are coming down. Yeah, go ahead, Shabazz. We're going to have to time, so we're going to have to wrap up shortly.
We're talking about banking, but we also need to touch emphasis on up-to-date banking.
Just hold on, Shabazz, we're not hearing clearly. I don't know if it is the earpiece. We're not hearing you clearly.
Is it me? Can you hear me now, everybody?
Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, good. I was saying, we speak a lot on banking, and Risha's presentation covered a lot of what is missing. But we also need to look into up-to-date banking. Compared to Barbados and the other Caribbean countries, St. Vincent is very much behind. We've just, in the last 2 weeks or so, started accepting card payments at our Inland Revenue Department. Like, it's 2022, and you've just been able to pay with your debit card at the Inland Revenue Department, something that should have been long established. And we still have a far way to go because we're moving into the era of Apple Pay and Pay. And we're far behind. So there needs to be a great discussion as it pertains to the membership and the growth and the banking aspect is necessary for entrepreneurs to tap into for us to see any growth. I'll cut that there for now.
Thank you. I know we went a bit long. I'm going to ask Laverne to present. Dr. Brandon, you have any comments before we move on to Ms. King?
Just very, very quickly, adding that fantastic. I mean, you can put a paper together out of this and present it to the government and put solutions to the gaps and present it as a solutions policy brief. But what I also wanted to encourage us all to do, as entrepreneurs, we are leaders. And as leaders, we really are supposed to advocate, lobby, make changes, try to make changes in our society. And this is a wonderful way to capture what's missing, what needs to be done, articulate what needs to be done, and present it, and then start seeing how you can mobilize different initiatives or mobilize people together in this ecosystem, in your ecosystem in SVG. And remember that while we're looking at SBG, it is not separate from the rest of the region. It's not. We like to think we're independent and we're not connected, but when you look around, you realize that we're all interconnected. We're all very interdependent. And if we're not, then we're going to die on our own. It's as simple as that. So we need to recognize what we can do as leaders in our society. And one of the things that I really would like you to do coming out of this, Miss Aline, is seeing how with the other entrepreneurs who are here, putting that paper together, putting the solutions, the suggested solutions, and maybe some of those solutions you and count me in as well. I'm all for it. I'm sure you can count Dr. John in. I'm sure you can count Ambassador George in. One or two of those solutions, we must be able on our own, for example, put a program together to help entrepreneurs or people who want to do entrepreneurship understand how to complete forms, expose them to different things, financial literacy, keeping your records, how to make a simple database online, things like those. What can we do? And those are just wild suggestions. I mean, they're not framework or streamlined, but there must be something that we could do. But thank you for that. I like how you pulled out those gaps, and I also like how you articulated them. And that culture of trust that that we have never really said, but ecosystem and inclusion means trust building. Yeah. If we don't trust each other, we ain't gonna work together. So trust is a huge part of what we have to deal with and build. And you know, we're all people. We have our idiosyncrasies and different things. But one of the things I have recognized over the years is that trust is very simply built on doing what you say you're going to do. And if you can't do it, saying that you cannot do it. Simple communication. But it's really hard because sometimes we don't want people to think bad of us, so we can't say we're not going to do that. The older I get, I realize, yes, I can say it. So no, I can't do that. I'm very sorry. But I guess it comes with age, right? I don't know.
Very sorry. Right. Just before Laverne presents, you know, I want to just close off that presentation by saying this. I see a merge between what Ms. Samuel says and what Ms. Allen says. And it is one of the things that I've recognized is this, right? If you want to see, or if you want to develop into a really successful entrepreneur, it is, as Dr. Brandon says, work those solutions with these gaps that have been identified. And I like what Rolisa said, we have to, what I find is lacking in St. Vincent, seriously, is that people are sitting back and thinking that somebody can come and bring the opportunity to them all the time. I personally, I mean, it is tiring, to be quite honest. I'm very honest. It is tiring to do it. Sometimes even with some of these programs that are put out, they will see the program, they go and get the application, and they come to me like, that is your business, right? You don't even make the attempt to even start to complete it. You just come and put it on my hands. You do it. We got to come out of that. Because the beautiful thing is that we know the challenges. We know that they are there. We all feel them in different ways, all of us. But we have to really, because we are entrepreneurs, we are special people. Not better than anybody else, but different. This is what is going to bring out the best in all of us. And that is what, this is what led me to where I am today. Because I sought to help solve some of those problems using entrepreneurship. That is how I became a social entrepreneur. And all of us have that in us, and we could do more to make that happen. So, handing right over now to Ms. King. In order to, I love to be in a society where there's good corporate citizenship and there's supporting policy. And a lot of people don't, when you call that word policy, people just get frightened and intimidated. because they don't understand the value of having it. And that policy is basically the same thing like writing your mission statement in your business and following it and writing out your objectives, what you want to achieve in your business and your plan. And it is important to be in an environment where it is progressive. One of the most troubling things for me was reading the 2018 IMF and Moody report. And both of these international organizations made it abundantly clear, and this is record, that the policies of our government at the time of their evaluation were not developmental. And people might get offended. I remember there was offense to it. But when you look at the results, note what they said, the results of it, it is showing that they were correct. If we change, according to Ms. Samuel, if we change the way that we do things, if we say, all right, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, you're going to get better. And corporate citizenship, as a marketer, I chose Laverne to really speak on the value and the impact of good corporate citizenship. Because there's some things that troubles me about corporate citizenship in this island that I don't want to touch them tonight, but there's some things that need to be better. And if we do comparisons across the Caribbean, we will see that the corporate citizens in this country need to step up the game because they're doing it in all the other islands. And here's the beautiful thing about it, right? There's the same monopoly companies that doing it in the other islands. My question is, I don't know if Ms. King is going to answer it tonight. Why are they not doing it in St. Vincent? The same that they're doing it in Jamaica, in Barbados, in Trinidad, in different islands. They're doing it. So it's not like they're not doing it. Why is it not happening here? And over to you, Ms. King.
Thank you so much, Ashley. I don't know if we're still doing the introducing ourselves part of it, but I'll be brief because I know we're way beyond our time. So I'm going to try and be as succinct as possible, and hopefully we could do more of a discussion to get this part of it going. So my name is Laverne King. I am an entrepreneur like everyone else on the chat. I'm originally from the Grenadines, the heart of the Grenadines, actually. I'm from Canawan, but I've been living on St. Vincent since I was probably 10 or 11, I think. I've been living on the mainland. I did my formal education. I went to Emmanuel High School, Kingstown. And interestingly, that's where I first met Ashley. I was going to one of those schools that people considered to be the bad children, bad brook, nobody good can come from there sort of school. But I was determined that I'm going to make, oh goodness, please excuse my dog. Sit. I was determined, I'm so sorry. I was determined that, you know, I'm not going to be one of the dropouts from Emmanuel as well. And so when I went to study at Mona, I did my formal education in marketing and communications and also my master's. When I came back to St. Vincent, well, I worked for a little while in Jamaica before I came back. I did marketing. I was a marketing executive for a business there. And then I decided to come back home. When I came back home, I decided to start my own business because I thought, given the different ideas and things that I wanted to do, and I guess it's no secret as well, my political involvement and so forth, it was difficult to have a full-time job as well as do that. And so I decided I'm going to try my hand at entrepreneurship. Also realized that there was a gap or a need in St. Vincent for more businesses to be online and to have websites. And I thought that that provided an opportunity for a service to be offered. You still find a lot of businesses that are not online and do not have a website or e-commerce site in St. Vincent. And so my business, Kim Marketing, we offer e-commerce solutions with our web development service. We also do graphic development, label production, logo, branding guidelines, and so forth. And most recently, with the help and guidance of Ashley, I also started Grenadines Gold. Grenadines Gold, I think, is the pride and joy of my heart at this present time, because from that project, as Ashley knows, It's not necessarily driven by, and everybody says that you enter business to make a profit. And whilst that is true, the reason I started this business, one of the reasons driving it, is that it provides a means of income for people more than just myself. And Ashley would say to you when he just came to Canada that the people involved in the project are people who are not otherwise employed, are people who are single parents, fisher folk, traditional fisher folk on the island. And so it gave me great joy to know that I was helping people who were otherwise disengaged to feel a part of a community and to feel as though they have some sort of stake in the business being successful. And so whilst Grenadine's goal is still relatively young, what we do is we do CMOS, and we do CMOS byproducts. So it's such an exciting thing for me because it helps me to be in the seawater more often now. And I'm so happy for that. I was starting to lose that side of me sitting in too many meetings, you know? So that's just a little bit of my background and what I'm doing currently entrepreneurship-wise. So I've been asked to talk a little bit about corporate social responsibility. And for corporate social responsibility, basically, in the most simplest of terms, without any sophistication, is the business, the organization partnering with the community to help to develop the space or the environment in which it exists. And so one of the things that people think corporate social, a misconception about social responsibility is that people think it just means giving us sponsorship here and there. And the truth is that that is just one component of it, because you have to think of the internal areas of responsibility. You have to think of the middle areas, and you also have to think of the external areas. And so when you look at the external areas, you want to consider things such as, what can we give back to the community more than just donating $500 to a one-off cause? And so that is where skills training comes in, because skills training is also a part of social corporate responsibility. And we find that a lot of businesses can do more for young people, young entrepreneurs, by actually having a skills program in place. And what it tells you as well is that I'm trying to teach a man how to fish. I'm not just giving him a fish. And whilst we see a lot of people, a lot of businesses on flyers as a sponsor for an event, that is just a one-off activity. And what happens with that is there's no real connection, because we don't know if this is something or a cause that that business truly stands for, or if they're just giving back $500 because it looks good for, you know, for that to happen. In the alternative, if you truly develop a program or an initiative where you yourself spearhead a cause, then that shows greater impact, greater alignment with the cause that you're trying to solve. So more than just sponsorship, there's social activities that you can be involved in. One of the examples that I love to draw on a whole lot, people in our country tend to shy away for some reason from taking a stand. A lot of things happen in our community, and you find businesses, they're silent or they say nothing because they think that that's being safe and would help their survivability. The truth is, the biggest brands in the world have taken stands and taken positions and sent a message with their brand by developing campaigns around issues. So I'll give you one. When Nick Kipotnik decided to kneel during the anthem in the United States, and he was kicked out of the NFL as a quarterback, Nike went and took him up and sponsored him, and he became the face of, tell me if I need to talk any louder because the rain is coming now and I'm competing with it, right? So Nike went and they sponsored him, and he became the face of like Nike's campaign for inclusion. And that Nike believes that, listen, we have to treat Black people, that their lives matter. And so when Colin decided to kneel for that, he was standing up for something. And in the US, there was a whole lot of conversation that time with so many persons who were being killed by the hands of the officers. And there was a lot of uprising. And a lot of people thought, you know what, that is their fight. Let me stay out of it. But this is one of the biggest brands in the world that you can find developing an entire campaign around it. And the interesting part about it is that Nike chose something that aligned with their brand, because corporate social responsibility moves just beyond a mere sponsorship. What Nike knew is that a large cross-section of their market share were Black people. And so that's where research comes in. That's where alignment comes in. And that's where values, your environmental standards, your labor standards, your supply chain management, and your stakeholders come in. Because if as a business owner, okay, yeah, let me jump behind this and put a couple dollars behind that and that's it. But yet still, this particular social activity doesn't necessarily align with your target audience, then really and truly, people can see through that. People can see through that. And there's a real issue. So people look at, is this sponsorship sincere? Does the ethics of the organization align with this? And how sustainable is it? One of the things about Nike, when we look back again at Nike, because I like them, they didn't only sponsor Colin, but they actually went with Serena. There was a whole campaign as well around her, showing how she rose from a little kid all the way up as a Black athlete. And so there are things that happen in our issues that happen in our community. And maybe you find a company, let's take, for example, something like domestic violence as a chronic issue in St. Vincent and Grenadines. If there's a march, maybe 1 or 2 companies might join in on it, but then after, they're silent again. As opposed to doing that, developing an initiative or a program in your workplace where you say, listen, over the next couple of years, we hope to do this. We hope to help to build a home or a safe space. It shows people that you're putting your money where your mouth is. And this is not just me doing something that is insincere, that is not sincere, and that is trending at the moment. Because a lot of people jump onto fads, and fads fade. That's just the ultimate truth. Fads fade over time. And then if you're jumping onto the next thing that's trending, people will eventually know that you're not sincere with what your brand is aligning to. I think that it is often safe in St. Vincent that we choose the route of, let me not comment on that, because I don't want people to think that commenting may seem that I'm politically aligned, that commenting may feel as though this is not what a business should do. But the truth is, business take on different personalities, and what you stand for with your business ultimately will help people to make that connection that they need, because business is all about community and connection. Without you putting your efforts behind the right initiatives and social programs that let people know that, listen, we have noticed this issue in our community, and we're taking a stand about it. We're making our voice be heard. And in addition to that, other than just sponsoring a one-off program, actually invest in social activities, invest in young people getting hands-on training, have internships at your business place, and not internships where you say people only gonna come and get some experience. Have paid internships, because a lot of these kids, young people, they come to your business place, and yes, it's an internship, but they do so much work. And you don't want it to be that whenever they have extra work to do, they hire a young person to do data entry and that's it. Actually, make them leave your business place better work ready, better equipped to go on to being able to be employed, you know? And so I do think that those are some of the simple areas that we can look at when it comes down to CSR, building community, sponsoring with brands, sponsoring with activities that actually align with your brands, with your ethics, and with your core values, and actually developing programs with young people where they can become employable, having intern at your place. I think that it's a very disingenuous act. And I've seen it time and time where people hire a lot of brilliant young people too, and they come into the business place, and then after they use them for a couple of weeks to get like backlog of work done, and then they leave and they're like, do it for the exposure, do it for the CV, do it for the resume. And it's a very unethical practice. I think that in addition to corporate social responsibility, I have to touch a little bit on environment and policy. For me, being in the blue economy, one of the things that we do, and actually I remember when we were starting Grenadines Gold, we know that sometimes when you do CMOS, you can lose a little bit when they're breaking. And so a lot of people, they put illegal nets in the seawater and so forth. And also, there's a situation where there are not a lot of laws in place to help persons who are in the blue economy from predatory larceny that happens at sea. I think that one of the things that ought to happen, there needs to be more informative sessions with stakeholders, both by government and other people in various sectors, to understand what are the issues that you're facing in your specific industry, and how can we from a policy position actually make it better. I think that one of the things that happen when we introduce new laws, new legislation, is that there's not sufficient consultation, stakeholder consultation that happens. And so we have a lot of laws or policies on the books that really doesn't make much of a difference to the actual day-to-day advancement of the different sectors, because you just go, you put things on paper, and then, you know, a lot of people don't know how it should work for them. When you have more focus group, stakeholder consultation, feedback coming in, and then having developed the policy position, you come back and re-educate people about what policies are now in place and how they can use that policy position to better advance their business. I think that that's where you see better partnership of policy development and business development happening hand in hand. And so those are just, you know, some of my surface thoughts on CSR.
Thank you. Thank you. I know that it's a lot, and these sessions could actually, each presentation could be a session on its own. And I want to just pause to say thanks so much to all of you for making the time, you know, and I hope that we understand the gist of what's happening here. I see an era developing where that, you know, we can come together more. We need to, not just now at this time, but I would suggest even more regular, to really discuss and, you know, put these things in a paper and get them implemented. We, the entrepreneurs, have that power. Why do I say that? If you go to the Caribbean Development Bank, they said very clearly that 70% of the GDP across the Caribbean comes from entrepreneurs. Do not let them fool you. It's coming from us. And they're hiding it because they don't want people to know that. It is coming from us. We are the ones who are driving the economy in the Caribbean. The entrepreneurs are doing that. And not the big, not only the big magnets, as people like to usually point at, the micro, the medium, the people who are starting up and scaling up, right? And we need to have that environment to make this happen. And I could go on about this, but I want to, we're going to just end by giving Dr. Brandon the wrap up on this one. And if I could just ask every panelist just one single takeaway. And then we would let Dr. Brandon wrap up and we end for the night. So over to you guys. One takeaway from this session.
Okay, I think it's one thing that definitely stands out and exalts prominence here tonight is the fact that there needs to be a greater sense of community through us as entrepreneurs. There needs to be a space where we could share our ideas and provide support for each other. So I think that's something we need to work on moving forward. That's it.
Thank you.
Well, yes, I certainly agree with Shabazz. There is a need for entrepreneurs in St. Vincent and the Grenadines to come together and to see, how we can improve the situation, build that entrepreneurship mindset. And I think Dr. Brandon has given us some homework with regards to, developing a policy and, at least, putting forward solutions to the powers that be. Thank you.
All right, so my takeaway would be that we should not shy away from sharing more. Being human about our experiences, both the good and the bad, right? In terms of networking with persons, you may find you have a friend who might be going through a challenge. Be comfortable with giving them advice, right? It might be a bit of an embarrassing situation for you because we learn as we go along, but don't be afraid to hold back. Don't be afraid to share. And I think that's the only way we're going to grow as a nation and as a group of entrepreneurs by itself.
Great point.
Yeah,
Ms.
I
Kim?
definitely agree with you on that point, Rosella. We need to be able to, I think that one of the biggest things that I had faced when just moving back to St. Vincent is how much people are not open with sharing information. It was so crazy to me. Like, people don't want to, I think one of the major problems that we have, before I give my wrap up, I have to say, is Ashley, I'm sorry, is that a lot of people don't like to say, how much should I charge for it? And people don't want to tell you because, like, I don't know if they're afraid but when you don't tell people how much to charge for something and then they start charging lower, and then they're gonna look at you and be like, oh, you're watering down the industry. But I asked you how much to charge. Like, we're so secretive about pay grade, pay scale, how much to charge for something, what your services cost. I think that it is a weird phenomenon. But yeah, coming out of the presentation tonight, I'm so happy that I came and be a part of it. There was something from everybody that I was able to take. Shabazz did such a good presentation on how hard is it to get going. And he made a point about, the need for more environment that facilitates more entrepreneurship. I also, Rosella, I was so touched by your story and so inspired as well, because sometimes entrepreneurship is so lonely sometimes. It is so lonely, I can tell you. It's hard. And so I want to encourage you to keep on keeping on, one of the things that keeps me going is that I've been fortunate enough to have a community of women. And in fact, one of them said to me earlier this year, Laverne, I think we should have a small group, a small network of women who we can bounce ideas off each other or bounce a response to an email off. Like, sometimes you get those emails and you're like, how the hell should I respond to this now? Because if I respond of my own, sometimes we get those messages. And so sometimes you need somebody else to have a second look at it and say to you, don't respond now, take a breather. And I think that point that Doc made about trust, we have to be able to provide a room or climate or an environment where we can trust each other to help each other, to thrive. And also from you, Risha, there was just so much in there about not sitting back and waiting, about actually getting up, going and keep applying to different institutions. I think that was so encouraging as well. So I was very happy to be a part of it. I hope that those who listen to us understand as well that, listen, entrepreneurship is hard work. It's a lot of glamour and glitter, but it is hard work. And I was so happy to hear about the he for she from Dr. Brandon's husband. It was fantastic to hear. So again, Ashley, thank you so much for having me on. And I look forward to continuing to be engaged by everybody here. And I hope to host a business mixer sometime early next year for entrepreneurs in St. Vincent. And I'd love to have you guys on board.
Definitely. Well said. You see opportunity already. The market is on it already. We love that. Yes, that is the reason for these sessions. I guess that I am a product of these sessions. I would probably say that now tonight. Dr. Brandon has been my mentor since 2004. And just that you said, Laverne, she's the one that I bounce those responses on. Should I say that? Don't say this. What should I do here? Yes, because sometimes, we doing so much that we don't forget the time to think properly. And I really love the takeaways. I love them. But let me just give the last takeaway, and this is coming from our audience. And this one really stands for me as, really big from our audience. And it comes from a lady by the name of Kiva A. And I quote, "A lot of great ideas. It is good to see and hear people and scholars who are very knowledgeable. We need to hear from them more and from others like them." I think that for me is that is the one that that really sinks it all home. And, over to you, Dr. Brandon. I want you to seal the icing on this cake. Thank you so much.
No pressure, right? No pressure. It's not an easy road. Gotta keep awake tonight, right? Entrepreneurs have fun. I had to learn maybe the hard way, what it means to think through things before I respond. So those emails that you get or those letters that you get, think about them. There was a time when I just fired off a response. And I can tell you, sometimes I got into real problems. Yeah. So over the years, I've learned to take a deep breath, bounce it off, ask people in your circle. And I like to say in my tribe, who I can trust. Dr. John is one of them. What do you think about this? What would you say? That kind of thing. Of course, many times you come back and make your own decision, right? Because really and truly, the reason you're bouncing it off is not really for them to tell you what to do. It's to get different perspectives, and then eureka, you end up saying, okay, I think this is how I'm gonna do it. And that fear that Ms. Samuel spoke about, I heard you mention the fear and the realization that people can actually put their fear on you. That is so important, because it is not that we are not fearful or that we are fearless. It is because there is a certain bravery that propels us to do something that somebody else perhaps would look at us and say, why are you doing that? Yeah. And you keep saying you had no choice. I understand exactly what you mean, because 5 years down the road, you may look back and say, my God, I should have done that then. I have looked back at some things and said, I should have done that way. I don't have regrets. It's just, I should have done that way. So tonight I want to share this with you. It's still not showing the way it should show. But one of the things that underpins us at COESL is what we call complementary capitalism model. Our model is based on the 4 Ps. It's about developing people so that they can make their own sustainable livelihoods, whether it's working for other people, like they're working for themselves, And we like to say working in other people's businesses like they're working for themselves. And that was so perfectly put to me by one of our entrepreneurs here, Dr. James Husbands, who owned Solar Dynamics years ago. But if you look at the P, developing people, you'll see that there's mindsets, there's the attitudes, the behaviors, the skills and the talents. That kind of focusing on people's mindsets, focusing on people, because many times we like to focus on processes and procedures and structures, and we totally forget that right in there is the human being. And that is why trust is so hard and inclusion is so hard for us, because we totally overlook the person, the individual. And the next P, of course, is partnerships, building strong partnerships. That is important for us. And it also means that we have to trust, because in order to build partnerships, we have to speak with each other. We have to connect with each other. We have to interact with each other. And we have to believe that what somebody says to us is true. And we have to, so it's about trust, trustfulness, and trustworthiness. The other P is peace. And I'm a firm believer of inner peace. I like to say, do not disrupt my peace. You're not coming here to disrupt my peace. Peace is important because peace allows you to think clearly. There are going to be times when you're not peaceful, and I like to say peace-filled, but you can. So I like to say this. I like to go into a zone and find your mindfulness and work from there. Peace is also extremely important for entrepreneurship and creativity and propelling action, all of those things. If you're in chaos, some people thrive in chaos as well. But a lot of times, if you're not peace, if you don't have peace within, you're not able to really thrive. And the last P is planet, and we talk about the environment. We talk about the green economy, blue economy, orange economy. All of those economies have always been there. You know, we talk about sustainability. We talk about protecting our environment. We haven't done a very good job of it. I'm very sorry. I'm very sorry to say that. But it's so true. We have not protected the environment that we were given with everything in it to sustain us. Some of the times we have innovated ourselves into destruction. Innovation then becomes a bad thing. Too complicated. And many times that's why people are not included as well. Because when you talk about innovation, or when we talk about innovation, we make it sound so complicated. A lot of people think, oh man, I can't innovate. It's like maths. People think I can't do maths, I can't do science because it's too complicated. It's only for people with superior brain. Hello. So yeah, I'm gonna leave you with this because this is what we work from and on at COESL. In there, there's the sustainable development goals that we work around, all of them, because of course we help people. And what we do as well is we pull, every time we work on a project, every entrepreneur we help, we try to pull from this model to see where are we in the shared value zone with this individual. Have we done a really great job at reciprocity, respect, partnership? Where are we at shared ownership? Where are we at sustainability? Is the business looking after its environment, understanding how it needs to care for its environment so that the environment can care for it? All of those. It would go into a much more in-depth thing to explain it to you, but I wanted to just push it here. And the main thing is that we mobilize people. We have a core group of people that we mobilize, that we work on making money together. We trust each other. And that's what we want entrepreneurs to understand, that can't work on your own. Find people in your tribe who you can share things with. Build a team. Even though your entrepreneurs working in different areas, complement each other. Marketing, sales, tech, whatever, design thinking. Because at the core of a product or service is design thinking. We're not making our own product for customers. We're actually making what customers want. Yeah. So we have to design it in a way based on their feedback. So guys, entrepreneurs, sorry, not guys, entrepreneurs. Thank you so much for including me in this. I mean, I thoroughly enjoyed it, way past my bedtime. I'm just joking. I mean, I don't have a bedtime, but anyway, I thoroughly enjoyed it. Dr. John, thank you for inviting me. Entrepreneurs, Miss Aline, see you on Sunday. And all the very best, Miss Samuel. I think you will do very well. Miss King, the same. You are bright, savvy young ladies. Ambassador George over there in the UK. Is it cold? Please take care. Very cold. Take care. And I stop here to say good night to everyone, and I'll hand back over to Dr. John. And feel free, please, to reach out to me if you need to. You can do it through Dr. John. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Brandon. I know that this came at a sacrifice as well, and I really enjoy this. I mean, wow, this is like a dream come true for me. I have always wanted, I remembered very well, they may not know this, but many years ago, you threw a challenge out, just like you did tonight. You gave us some homework in a session like this, and I came all the way to St. Vincent, as someone said to me, roll up my sleeves, and I did that. And over 10 years now, we just celebrated 10 years doing entrepreneurship in St. Vincent and the Grenadines officially. And that happened in the month of October. And that was not easy to achieve, believe me. It was hard work, pounding the pavement, but it paid off. There have been a lot of success stories. There could have been more, yes, but I am very satisfied that at least I know that we together would have made a difference. You know, when I see, not just, as Dr. Brandon said, I knew Laverne from school. And I don't know if Miss King is still listening, but at the time when I met Laverne, there was three friends, and they were saying, I got to pass these exams or my mother gonna kill me. You know, they were so concerned about doing well to represent the home. And that captured me, to be quite honest, that here we have some future leaders. And I've not stopped, you know, from that time. And I'm very happy tonight that we could even come, as Shabazz says, in another forum. It is good to know that we're working next to each other, you know, rather than you mentoring down. And that is what it is about, complementary capitalism, building each other up, building better together, building a better community and a better St. Vincent and the Grenadines, a better Caribbean, and a better world for entrepreneurship. We can do it. We are going to do it. Let me congratulate every one of you for the sacrifice you have been making to get your business work. Do not be deterred. We have to just stretch beyond the mountains, and we have to position ourselves out there in the marketplace. It's a bigger marketplace. Do not be deterred. We can do it. We have seen it across the region. St. Vincent Products has done very well, and they are doing very well. We just need to, as I must go again to Relisa says, get down in there and do the hard work, get the policy right, get the structure right for funding and everything, get the build better together, look at our youth, and then we're gonna see the results in years to come. So thank you so much for the sacrifice for going this long. And we will end on by just playing a little tip of the CARICOM anthem. As I say, a good night to our guests. They have been very supportive. I see great comments from Dr. Kiva Allen. We see Joylyn Dennis Lampkin, Alita Garraway. We have John T. Burke, Combative Architectural Designs, I think it is, Rosie Samuel. We have so many people on YouTube and those who are joining us also on Facebook Live. I see Mind Barber join us, and Neverson Adina, Tony Gunny, Christopher, Terrence, Tommy, Alan Oliver, and all the others I would have mentioned earlier. Thank you all so much for sticking with us for all this time, and you know, for giving the support, for the comments that you have been making. And we encourage you that even after, to look back at this, look back at this recording and let it be a benchmark for greater things to come for St. Vincent and the Grenadines. So on that note, I want to say good night to you, and I really hope that it shall be well with you. Thank you so much. Maybe panel, just stay put. Good night. Just stay put until we end this live officially, just in a second. Thank you so much. Here we go again. Okay. Okay, we're gonna have to end it here because it's still having this problem every time I go to share this video. So good night to all. We just come off. They just hold. May my panel just hold for 1 second, please.